some point, there was a check written to the school for $700 some odd dollars when Richard Parker was the trustee of public funds. Nothing has been sent to the school since then. That was the interest. Yeah, that counted be. And right now, it stands about $6,900 in that account. And the town of Hyde Park has sent their money they have gotten from the grammar school sale to the school district. In Morristown and Cambridge are also looking into sending it to the school district.
So they've sent the interest to the
The whole
total
fund,
funds.
total fund,
So,
Hyde Park has.
am I to gather that we invested close to $7,000 for 40 years?
No,
And made $700 interest?
that was back, I can't remember the date that we gave that to them, but
We only made $1,000 interest since that
Yeah.
$700 was given, yeah.
That's embarrassing.
you know, like, they've got it in a public funds account and it's ridiculous.
It's negative.
Does that show up in our
Yeah.
report somewhere?
So this is probably coming up because of the formation of the modified unified union school districts and the money not needing to go to the town anymore.
Well, what started it? I think I sent an email last March about positions we didn't have to have. And I think this fund qualifies for that trustee of public money.
Yeah.
Public funds.
I think I would like to be that position.
I think you do a good job.
I think that's better than that.
Did you read my email?
So are you
You don't know what goes
making a
on with it.
recommendation to the select board or kind of giving us a heads up and looking for us to? Are you recommending that we make a motion to transfer the funds or you just?
I just want to make you aware of it and what other towns may be doing. Mine.
So the statute says that amounts shall be held and invested by the trustees in each of the town for the benefit of their respective town school district. Why would we want to keep that?
Well, there is no respective town school district anymore.
Or would you say the unified district was the respective?
I guess.
I would argue that that is.
It is the legal successor.
Yeah,
Well worded.
So Duncan, you would recommend we keep the money,
I didn't say that.
but that's what you're implying.
No, I didn't. I didn't. What I was implying was, did we really have a school district? I don't think we really do have a school district anymore.
So that means we can keep the money.
Well, you could argue.
I don't think Peter finished what he was saying.
Well, I guess it was just a question, why would we keep it if it was intended to benefit? Schools. Never mind school district. Seems like it'd be an easy thing to let go of.
It probably is. I could play devil's advocate though and say that it was granted to the town with the school district to be the recipient of the proceeds of it. And one could equally make the argument that they're entitled to the interest generated off it for ad infinitum, I guess, but.
Well, if you give them $100 in interest, they'll raise their budget by 10 grand. We're going the wrong way.
Yeah, well, if we give them $7,000, they'll do the same thing.
Raise it by 100 grand.
Yeah.
I don't, we could pull the select board here. I'm not sure if you need a motion on that. I agree with Peter.
I do also. I'd like to just clear it out from our folks.
But I mean, the legislation as drafted. If they had wanted to give it to the school district, wouldn't they have just given it to the school district? They gave it to the town. be held in trust for the school district. So are we abrogating this legislative caveat by simply turning the money over? I'm not saying that we shouldn't, we probably should, but
Would it give you less heartburn if Rosemary got some clarity from DLCT? I'm not saying it's a bad idea, I don't, nobody wants the town to be in trouble, even though it's in good faith.
We're not gonna be in trouble if we keep the money.
I think there's
No, but
also,
there's, we could charge administrative fees for handling the.
$100 for
This trust.
at the time that this
$10
legislation
just to make some beer.
went through, is the towns were the fiduciary agent for the schools. And the school clerks who actually hold the school records up until X date for that reason. And so I think at whatever time we let go, the town let go of the control of the school records and let go of the school fiduciary responsibility, this probably should have went with it. And it might just be an oversight from that. And I don't know how you finalize that.
I'm in favor of. Rosemary, you can research it, but I'm in favor of getting it off our books. I don't see any plus to holding on to it.
Apparently it's not in other books.
It's just not shown on our books.
It's not shown on our books. I want to know if there's other stuff like this that don't know about.
Well, if you become trustee of public funds.
I
Then you're
will.
gonna know.
Yeah.
Um,
Wait.
Would you mind asking that question
Sure.
just to make sure? And
Sure.
I'm with Mark. I would make a motion that we convey whatever sums of money are in that Union Bank account directly to the modified school district for their use and benefit. With our congratulations.
You're keeping too.
And I will second that if that's a motion, and then I will ask the question, if, am I clear that Hyde Park has already done that?
Yes.
Morrisville's already done that?
Hyde Park definitely has done it, I'm not.
We're still in Cambridge, you're thinking about it.
They probably don't even know that.
Oh, I'm sure they do, because Sierra Haskins was asking that.
Oh, yeah. Like,
there's a motion on the floor in a second. You were the stickler.
I know. I just don't, I think it's a pain in the butt for Rosemary to have to
Yeah.
investigate it, so.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed,
Nay,
the ayes have it. Okay, Rosemary. Delinquent tax report and tax sale implications is the next item.
Okay. These guys the report. Three or 4 weeks ago, we had a class on tax sales. From actually the person who works at our attorney's firm. And there's been several changes to the law. We have to wait at least 12 months before the end of our last installment is in May. You have to wait at least another year before you can go to tax sale. And there's many more notices that you have to give the people.
So you'd almost have to have a tiered system of who went delinquent and what year, what their last payment was.
And the attorney suggested almost doing double what the minimum requirements are. The minimum requirement is 12 months.
the attorney's thinking we should go wait 24 months.
Well, in that, 12 to 24 months to start it.
we have a number that still qualify even with that extended
And
time.
they,
frame.
yes, and, their recommendation is that we should not go anything less than $1,000. Because the attorney firm only gets 15%, it's not what they're. Otherwise, they would build a town with the difference. And they said, The town should not buy any parcel only if it's there's nothing built on it. So the town couldn't be taking an old lady's house, which is the case that was wrong,
So
litigated,
only vacant.
vacant
land?
lots that the town should buy.
But if we put it up for tax sale. Some person could buy it.
Yes, yes, the town should not buy it.
Okay, so they're not recommending us not put it up for tax sale, just not us
Yeah.
only.
And they said any reasonable. Payment agreements, they would not do that to them. What determines a reasonable pay agreement too? I know we have one that I would not call reasonable, but something, at this point, something that's better than nothing.
Well, we've got a few people who are heavy hitters.
Mhm. And there's one on page 3, the second from the top, that trailer has been destroyed.
That trailer,
Mhm.
page 3, there's a $14,000 bill.
That's the one that's second from the top.
Yeah.
A mobile home owed $14,000.
Yeah.
Pretty exciting mobile home.
Is there a need to rewrite the delinquent tax policy to match the new law
Probably sure.
and then with a procedure in place? This, I know, some towns have gone to having a tax sale every year, but
Mhm.
starting 2 years out, so that way every year you notice a tax sale for 2 years prior, so every year you do it.
Typically, we did before COVID hit.
Oh, I see, yeah.
The one below that is $20,000.
Mhm. He has not made any kind of arrangements there.
Unfortunately, a lot of people are starting to work the system.
Mhm.
So is the attorney's opinion that if there is an agreement
Reasonable. agreement.
and have it, what's the definition, right?
Yeah, that's a very good.
I mean, I know in the past, there's been agreements where we knew that
You know.
they would never catch up,
Mhm, mhm,
basically.
mhm.
So is that an unreasonable agreement?
A lot of agreements he suggested. That. The agreement is only on the delinquent taxes and the current taxes have to be kept paid.
Have to be paid. So that could be part of the, that could be a standard in the policy, the
Yeah.
delinquent tax collection policy. Because I think probably one of the most important pieces of that is that you have a policy and you follow it, and you treat everybody the same.
Mhm.
You don't treat somebody differently.
Does VLCT come out with a new model policy to match the law?
Mhm. I'd have to look.
That would make it super slick.
Yeah, they were supposed to send us the slideshow, and I don't think they have done that yet.
When did these changes go into effect?
Well, I
A
want,
lot, yeah.
Of this,
yeah,
2024.
6 months ago, yeah.
They were saying even if you send a certified letter. You should send your certified letter and a regular mail. At the same time, because people will not pick up certified mail. And there's a presumption of that the person had got the regular first class mail. And if there's like, and the office that gets returned, you can go to the property. Stick, the notice on a tree, say it's, has sent me home, and take a picture of it, and that makes proof that you tried to contact that person.
Or if we had like a physical tax collector, like we used to have years ago, like Bill. He could go to the house with that and serve it, actually
You
like
can
that,
have search, yeah,
yeah.
but sometimes people won't even look to serve until.
But anyway, no matter what, even if you take on page 3, the third person down, if you did a tax sale 782391, and somebody bought it at the tax sale. And the individual never paid back the person that bought it, the person would still, that bought it at the tax sale, would still be responsible for all the other taxes. So the town is gonna get their money back
Mhm.
as long as the tax sale takes place. So,
So to use your example, what would happen if, Mike bought a property at tax sale? And then he, for the next, what's the redemption period, 1 year?
It's still.
3,
I don't think it's still not the 1 year.
is it?
I don't think that.
Okay, it was 1 year years ago, but you, the
I think they
person who
tried to
bought
do
it,
3 years.
that's right, he had 2 more years that he couldn't do a thing with it.
Mhm.
So it was
So it's
actually a total of
effectively-
3 years,
Effectively, 3 years.
3 years, yes. But the deal would be if you're, I'll let you finish your question.
Well, not to pick on you, Mike, but let's say that person that bought it didn't pay the taxes on it from the time that they purchased it. Is there any way that,
Think about that back there.
yeah, I know,
Yeah,
yeah, but, so there really isn't any way you can require the person who buys it to pay, to keep the taxes current.
well, the
No,
deal
not
is
the
that Duncan,
redemption period,
that most anybody that buys anything in a tax sale. In other words, I don't know what the assessed value of this place is, if it's out $7,800, I mean, you're talking a substantial piece of property. Correct? So it would behoove the person who bought it at the tax sale to maintain the taxes and pay them up.
Yeah.
Because he wouldn't want to be out his investment.
Don't,
So I mean, the person that got it, by the time that all got sugared off, he could have $50,000 invested in this piece of property.
At the end of the day, though, Rosemary, the person who buys it, are they, I thought I recalled that they were getting it pretty substantially return,
1% per month.
so they're getting 12% a year.
Yeah, you get 12% of nothing if they don't pay you.
Right,
But if they
only,
don't-
that's only
if
if
they
they
don't-
deem it.
Right, but
Right,
they
they
get
don't-
the,
if
they
they don't
get the
pay it,
property, or they
Right.
get,
But then you gotta wait years.
I mean, there's been people in this town that have made substantial money doing tax sales, buying property at tax sales.
It's possible.
So they get the property or they get 12% return on their money, not bad. Especially the way we invest.
Given the timetable,
especially if we're 68%, that's the LA.
Yeah,
yeah, given the timetable, there's what, 1, 2, 3, 4. 5, 6, 7, 8. 9, 10, 11, 12, yeah. 15 places that would kind of fit the mold.
The top one on page 2. When COVID was happening. Of course, letters were sent every time you did a interest thing, and we called this person twice to apply for those grants that the government was paying people's taxes. Refused. Wouldn't do it. And she's one that had, I think, has an unreasonable pay meter.
Some of these almost look like accounting errors, they're so small, but
Yeah, some of those little ones were done.
So you usually come to us once a year and recommend that anything below this threshold not go to tax sale, like others do. Are you at a point where you'd be prepared to come to the board and make that recommendation for?
Do you want to wait closer to May? It will be at the 1 year mark. And do them all at once.
sure.
Yeah, when was the last time we did, one? Like 4 or 5 years ago?
Before I was on the board,
If you just pre-COVID?
we could probably contact, board with you. Start off with the attorney now.
Mhm.
It's
And,
sort of like that, once it's done.
and we have to have a motion from the select board. Authorizing the delinquent tax collector to contact the tax attorney.
Yeah, we had a difficult time finding a tax attorney at one, two.
Well, Citron Page will do it wherever they're calling themselves now.
Okay,
That's who was doing the VLCT workshop,
Are they the ones that did the last tax sale?
you know, in the Boston.
What would you recommend?
Angel, woman, she doesn't.
So you're saying in May, I'll have a motion on a recommendation. Anything else on delinquent taxes? Okay, anything else, Rosemary?
And I've handed out the latest budget status report. And I've made up 3 new funds. One for the industrial part, one for the river stabilization grants, and one for the library grant. You're at the top of the packet.
You were saying earlier when we had the discussion that we should have a separate one for Holmes Meadow. Is that true?
I would recommend 5 separate project budgets. Industrial park, Vermont Electric Co-op, stormwater. Just because of the volume, and industrial park is 1.7 million. VEC is 565,000. The Holmes Meadow is about 750,000, and HMGP funding, so different funding source. And we have Glenway Lane, USDA, EWP grant, that's 535,000. And then the last one, the library, 1.7 million, our ARPA funded. So because of the different funding pools and the various in the volume of them, and we have, I think it was a brilliant idea, however, it does create issues. If by having the same engineer handling all of the projects, it means the invoicing might be harder to track if it's not all separated. They code them,
Yeah, they typically bill by project.
yeah.
So would it work to add those extra funds that Tom's gonna?
I think that this. They're the ones in my memory that we were talking about.
Okay,
It'll probably make it easier to track from a budget standpoint in the future too.
Yeah, especially with our reimbursement, we can do. When you pull those,
They're not in the general budget anymore.
yeah.
Yeah, having them separated out, I think is just gonna be a lot easier.
And when we pull those detailed transactions, we can use that as our justification for reimbursement, which will make it really clean.
I'd say it's really transparent in the town range. It shows that in the town report, it's what's funny, it does, rather than trying to peck your way through the general budget.
thank you, Rosemary. You're welcome. We're gonna move on unless you got anything else.
You won't stick around for the budget stuff, or you ready to go home?
Sticking around for the whole thing. Haven't seen her in forever.
I know, either I've
feel
been on
fine.
vacation or I was told not to come, so on the second one.
We never touch.
Next up is the road foreman's report. I know I read that in the minutes previously.
It's not in the pack yet.
We had it
on our computer. You know, I emailed it or texted Jason. I don't remember seeing it, but I was out the last 2 weeks, so.
I
You said-
I sent it to you and the board.
Okay, thank you.
What's your road maintenance and parts? They're doing a great job. There was a heads up. Can you cover your other thing while I'm looking up your
Yeah.
road foreman's report rules there?
Dedication for the town report.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Typically, we handle that kind of in quiet, so it can be a surprise. Can everybody get their ideas?
given the fact that we have one auditor is. It's technically the auditor's report and their decision, we would make a recommendation to the auditor. How do we, do you want to? I know who I would recommend, but,
But again, you want us to email you recommendations?
Yeah. And I'll throw an email out to the board, and if there's no help,
And then you'll just pick one. Good idea.
close my eyes and point at the screen. Is the board okay with that?
Yes,
Yeah.
Should we have some in memories of too?
You're nodding your head yes.
Or
everybody-
David?
Wouldn't hurt if the board's okay with it.
about time.
Yeah,
We got dedicated to the town report several years ago,
Right.
Frank and Barb together.
Wayne Stearns,
I don't know, see, was he first, I don't think he was ever.
has been around here for. Oh. I think we had an in memory of last year that wasn't on the select board or
Oh, right, sure.
lived in the town. They're still community members. Okay. Board, give me some info by the end of the week and I'll get with Rose Parent.
What if we all come up with different names?
and he'll pick.
I'll
Yeah, you
bounce
just kinda-
something off the
Write
wall.
them on little pieces of paper and put them in a hat, they go.
Okay. So the road foreman's report, was they recently accomplished equipment repair and maintenance, fixed the sander on the low pro. Which I believe is the salt truck.
Yeah, the CV.
Current projects, they're putting new tines on the tow behind York brake, and cutting brush, upcoming tasks, winter road maintenance and training. It says discussion with the select board, it's really just information only, the Ram 3500 is at the dealer for a transmission issue. That's the road department's report, read in for anybody that wants to listen.
Did the road foreman venture over the mower to look at a?
No, it was sold. Problem solved.
Road name, recognition.
Yes, I did.
It was a deal.
Cover of the
Anybody's been thinking
I didn't know
what to
that.
use,
Did you know?
What?
the picture for the.
picture for the cover,
Anybody have any suggestions?
I do. And you know, I hope it doesn't get people upset or aggravated, but since the flood took place after our last year's annual report, there was a great picture of the loader coming
Yeah.
down Railroad Street
Yeah, that was good.
with, you know, through 4 feet of water.
With
I think that'd make.
people in the bucket?
I-
Were there people in the bucket?
No, I don't,
Yeah,
That would be a-
well, I can't
It's
remember.
nice off.
Oh.
There were people in the bucket plenty of times.
But there's still an ocean plan.
Well, and it was a rescue, you know, so if it was a rescue.
Yeah, I can see
Yeah,
that.
OSHA violation, or you get to drown, you pick.
Yeah, right. So,
You just can't use a bucket for just general maintenance.
right. I mean, I thought that was a great picture or a flood related theme picture of some sort.
you just want to keep with the floods, don't you?
You know, again, I mean, I don't want to give anybody trauma.
What does everybody in the audience think of that?
What?
Wasn't there a vote machine on the cover last year?
A grader,
Grader.
Grader.
a brand new grader.
Okay. Well, a road machine.
We like our equipment.
There's a road machine. And there was, hang on. The grader last year. There was a playground the year before.
It was a community oven.
Guess what was there on before the year
Yeah,
before
the
that?
community oven was all.
How about the arboretum?
You know, I was thinking about that, but I really wanna see a sculpture walk in there, have a drone take a photo from the top up.
There is gonna be.
If anybody took a
sculptures.
picture of the arboretum right now, it'd be a little bleak.
Or bright. It was a sunny day.
Yeah, true.
If anybody else has some other I mean, we have a meeting on Thursday. If somebody has a wonderful idea of a picture.
Yeah.
For that, could we
Yeah, get a picture of a flowering tree, that'd be really great.
flowering
Do
arboretum?
you have any flowering trees in the arboretum?
Yeah,
How about sunflowers?
That's a great idea.
About granting all
Like-
of it.
Oh, a picture of crocus.
I'm not adverse to either a picture of like the whole. The town employees. People versus machines.
Yes,
The Art Freedom drone shot is, I think, really good. And the Arboretum is great because, hey, it's next to the river, but it's rebirth. It's working.
Also great publicity for like the most underutilized town park.
Is there a drone shot somewhere
Of what?
of the Arboretum?
There could easily be.
Casey's pointing at me like I have a role.
No, we wouldn't call it this time.
If there is one, Sue would have it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
I can
maybe.
email and. see if you-
I got the nice new walkway and the
tree
bridge in the
people-
last
tree
couple of
people would know.
years.
Yeah, which you're not gonna see right now. Over the snow.
It's white,
Yes. Get Eric's garage in there.
yeah.
Cool. Nice looking garage.
A little bit of in-depth thought over the next couple of days.
Should have started sooner and gone out to the public.
Who
Submit
knows what
pictures.
Sue Lovering has in her files,
Ah,
right? And other garden people.
You know, Tom, can you make a calendar reminder? In November of next year. We should talk about just having a photo contest.
That's a great idea.
For the, specifically
For the cover.
for the cover of the town meeting, for the town report.
Thanks for picking up my idea.
Are you stealing my ideas?
Appreciate it.
It was a good one. Whoever's it was, Tom, please make a reminder, and give credit to whoever wants it.
yeah.
And a reminder.
It's okay. That's okay, I'm not a credit manager. I don't have to take the.
That's on your plate, we will have it next year. The next select board will deal with
Put it
it.
in your phone.
I want a picture of Paul Warden. Right there on the cover.
I got it.
I'll take it right now.
You guys live in the same house.
I think Bruce should be on.
Well, you gotta have both of them in there. Get close together and take.
All right.
Sit together.
And put some thought into it and have feelings out, you're on the conservation. committee.
You don't wanna sit in the cuffing chair, Paul.
Ask some questions, see if it's a good,
If you have something good, okay.
like a pretty picture.
Aw,
All right, as joyful as this is, we got business to.
I know, right? We have to keep going. The Foreman report is done. Getting into Tom's report. First thing was the addition, I had sent the board. A. Cost, which Charles, I had up. But I had to look up another 17 min. The cost for the contract with Town Web. I believe that we had motion to go with Town Web in the past, but we needed a significant number. We have a motion and a signer. As Charles stated earlier, it's one-time setup. And the basic package for a year. There is adders we can add anytime, correct? So if there is something more that we want,
You can add it.
we can probably go to it and add it.
130 an hour and then like a per item, if it's not standard features, you're like.
Is there a yearly maintenance fee to this?
It's included.
20,
1800?
The 1,800 is a setup.
So
2620 includes all maintenance and support and the website
and that's yearly, but that's yearly. And
yearly.
I'm having trouble over, I sent it to the board.
do we need a-
Say
that, what is yearly? What's the yearly charge?
2620.
2620 is gonna be a yearly charge.
Yes.
Why did you guys vote for that? That's good. That's a pretty big charge.
Alright.
I can't believe you guys did that.
$10,000 on the table, we
Really,
bring in
I
a
can't.
truck and $2,600 is a hold up forever.
Yeah,
Do we need a motion to, sign the contract?
If there's no objections from anybody, I don't see a problem with going with that. It was in line. We were just confused on the pricing structure, right? This year. And we're going, oh, what are we adding? What are we not? I would recommend a motion and maybe throwing out a point person for the website to deal with. That way there's no confusion going forward. Who deals with our website now?
That's why we went out for a redesign bid.
No.
No, like a point person
inside
in-house
the
to kind
town.
of just support the transition.
That's part of the problem.
I thought that's Lydia.
I don't know that I'd say it was Lydia.
I thought she takes care of the website on the town.
I mean, there are several people who post. We had, David Hill took over the website after our last web developer passed away. During the flood of 23, Beth took it over from then, and then Beth never really gave it back. So after Beth left the board in March, it's just been kind of a free for all. And so this redesign process is this is gonna help direct everything forward. Part of the RFP was to work with Rosemary specifically and office staff. And I think probably in-house, the board will have some tiered system for who the web point person is.
All I know is that they said that the only thing that would hold them up would be communication with the town.
Okay.
So they asked for a point person. And so if we're gonna try and get this up within 6 weeks, which is what they say they can do. We're gonna need some good follow through and communication with them.
Right,
Mr. Chairman. In previous discussions about websites, didn't we have some that were a lot less yearly fee than that? $2,600 a year?
I can't remember off the top of my head.
They were.
We had the gamut.
focused Pretty much with,
They were right there.
they were right there, everybody else was.
I don't believe the village is paying that kind of money, are they?
They're paying 2,500, but I spoke to BJ and basically it's just information page for fire department and then utilities. That's it. You know, they don't have committees, so they don't have committee chairman having to post things or put content on their pages. And they really don't have the design for that. I mean, that's what they told me. That's what BJ told me.
You were a large proponent at the beginning for a new website.
I'm in favor of that. I think the board should select the stable, so to speak.
I do too. You wanna make a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that, what, do we want a motion with the number 4420?
Yep.
Okay, that we, allocate $4,420 for the setup.
Authorized time.
You already approved that website last time.
And then Tom to sign the contract. So you got my number, 4420, and town administrator.
And you better add that maintenance fee of $2,620 on there, too.
No, it's
It's
included.
It's included.
No, but I asked you a yearly fee. In other words, a maintenance fee every year. What is that charge?
$2,600.
The whole thing is 2,620 for the website and the maintenance fee. It's
Right,
included.
but
And we'll
what
do
is
that
the,
next year again. Mark.
what is the next year charge? Same
2,620.
thing?
Yeah.
Same thing again?
Yes, sir.
We're paying a yearly fee right now.
Yeah, well, a lot of sites are a lot cheaper than that.
Okay.
Well, they didn't submit anything to
Not
the RFP.
Gave RFPs.
Right now, we have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, is there further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed,
Nay.
and the ayes have it.
Okay. Donna, you got that? You got the number and that you got town administrator is going to be.
Authorized to sign.
Fine.
We definitely need to have,
Can we have that signed like right away?
can you send it to him? I could forward it again.
You want me to, okay, I can forward it to him.
I mean, it's a,
Has you on the line.
sure, I mean, you guys urgent to get it done.
I think,
Kind of, I mean, before the library move, it only takes them 6 weeks from the time we pay them.
timing would be,
But
we have talked about this for like 3 some odd years.
I think the point, during our budget discussion tonight, I think one thing that hasn't been established is, are we doing this for, next year's budget 7-1, or are we doing it right away? And it just doesn't matter, and if we're doing it right away, we'll sign it right away. If we're doing it for the budget, we sign it and say, hey, we'd like a 7-1 start date or whatever. And part of the RFP, that process, are we budgeting for a future expense, or are we doing it in this year? Doesn't matter, but that's probably should be defined right.
I think the approval is for now. So.
Yeah,
So that was the motion and what was voted on.
I can tell you that their prices are going up as of 125, and if we do it now, we're locked in.
Right.
I think we should do it. The question becomes where we put it in the budget. Because it'll reduce our.
All right, yeah, all right, all right, all right. Yeah.
But. I think.
Yeah.
okay, so the motion is passed, we know that, and we know that we're gonna do it now.
Yeah,
That was-
You know, I mean. Do we have clarity on who the point person is gonna be?
Thomas is the point.
Are you gonna be the point person?
Yes.
beauty,
Well, your motion must have had him sign a contract.
right.
Figured that would be the point person.
Right, so it has to be signed and paid before the 25th, otherwise
Perfect.
prices go up and the contracts are.
Thank you for your help.
All right,
Thank you, Charles.
next item was the library relocation. You said there wasn't a ton on that, but can you? The school would. Yeah. take-
Yeah, so quick, there's two things, one is, or that's one thing. I spoke with Dylan McClem today, I emailed him in the past, but, school's a lot going on with their budget, as we know, and they. Also are in the middle of a pretty large audit for the building itself. But, just kind of coordinated rather than going through the two boards, just putting both attorneys together and just. The board, this board wants it, that board wants it, so let's just get the paper together in front of that board and just move this ahead. It's time to just. Get it done, right?
So with the 6,000, almost $7,000 that were given them, they should be able to. That's
Could have held that as leverage, yeah.
No,
that would've made a big
we might, could we
difference.
reduce that amount by the attorney's fees?
Yeah, well, I was thinking that might just about pay their attorney.
And the town is covering their attorney's fees, because we're getting that land for nothing. So that's our fee for the
That would
purchase.
be our costs.
Is- But this is a pretty simple transaction, we're accepting the land out as it is without the permitting.
Perfect.
Anything, architects, building movers? I was
No.
asking generalized.
No, this is great, it's great. Bob Fletcher and I have been playing phone tag and just to get those contracts finalized, to get in front of the architect and get in front of the building mover so that they can sign off and get moving. And then the building mover, the architect should be getting in touch pretty soon. It was supposed to be after the new year, but I haven't heard anything. Just so they can put together a quick budget plan to go out to bid for a general contractor. Based on the needs of the building mover and the architecture drawings for those needs.
Right, and are you peaceful that our architect contractor is gonna be in contact with like historic preservation? All those kind of,
Yeah, so we already went through the historic preservation. The building is not on the historic register.
no, but I mean, the land that we're moving it onto. Last time we did something like this, they had to excavate and look for old foundations. We were talking about that today. Duncan with that. You can
We
shake
talked
your
about
head.
that?
What?
We talked about that?
Yeah,
I can't remember.
we already did the permit navigator, as part of the application process, and that was confirmed by Lumley early on. I think we're gonna be able to avoid Act 50, just because it's less than 1 acre and less than 10 acres for a municipal site. And so it should be a pretty simple transaction where the only permits we'll need are wastewater and water. And let's hope,
I think you're naive.
I'm optimistic is what I call that.
Naive.
Can I ask that, I know you and I talked about it a little bit today, but can I ask that in your next report, you bring the full board up to speed on where this building, the wastewater treatment facility, all of that stuff is, so that we're in the loop of that.
Would it be okay if I invited maybe Eric or somebody from the village to just, it's really there. Just to, rather than, I mean, I'm happy to do that report based on their communication with me, but I do want a physical presentation from them to see timeline, costs, et cetera, or do you want me just to bring that to you from you?
I was more hoping along the lines of little detailed written aspect of your report, but
Yeah.
it's, certainly up to the board. If the full board thinks, a dog and pony show would be good, that's great, but.
I'm thinking more of little Eric on the screen. Bringing us up to date, zoom in, I'm not gonna ask him to come and do a dog phone show. It's that,
Well-formed report with a lot of details and availability for questions.
We still talking about the wastewater treatment plant right on this site right here.
no.
You know, Mike,
Uh,
I don't even know.
Yes.
yeah, so.
Yeah,
Well, there you go.
There you go, right
Maybe
there.
that's why the board wants to brought up
Yeah,
those
well,
things.
That's why. I asked
So,
you for the
so just
report.
before,
Yeah, well,
I mean, a quick, again, this is third party, but a quick, right before Christmas, all the funding parties, so congressional delegation, state reps, and A&R. And Vermont Emergency Management, all the money opportunities met with the village to talk about. How do you do this? So everyone agrees, getting out of the floodplain and getting here is the best decision, but who's gonna pay for it? And so the only holdup is funding, and so there is still an opportunity that it's gonna come here. I think it's the best solution, or it's presented as the best solution. It's just, if it can't get paid, it's gonna get elevated at site. And I think one of the main holdups is if they approve the relocation. FEMA will only pay to that dollar, so say it's like say it's $1 million. They'll only give you $1 million, so if you go over budget to 1.5 million, you're only getting $1 million. Where if you elevate on site, and you go over budget, FEMA will cover the over budget costs. And so that risk is they're trying to figure out how to cover that risk.
This is a good thing to have a full update on
You
because
know, I would just,
I see it.
I would just add that. This is a jointly owned building, so it's not really a decision of the village and the funding entities. We're gonna have
Right.
something to say about that.
The biggest hurdle might be, select board doesn't want to sell. That would be a completely different hurdle than funding.
well, where's the new municipal office building gonna be?
That one looks pretty nice.
That old building? Good grief. It'd take you millions to
Potential.
renovate that place.
I didn't really mean to have this become
Well, it's a
a
great.
30-minute discussion tonight.
It's a long tangent and we have a public question.
Under library, is that not in the floodplain, which would require floodplain permit?
The new location is not. It's outside of where Mark Day was hired as a surveyor to map the 500-year floodplain, so the new building will be outside of the 500-year.
Good.
You know,
Okay.
the seniors are gonna wanna weigh in on this.
Which floodplain?
The sewage treatment being.
The proposed one, which was much smaller? Or the one that's currently in effect, which is the old one? which
We
is
have
much
to work
larger?
under the ones that are in effect from the 1987 maps.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ready to move on? That'll be a good one.
Thanks for bringing that up.
Square away.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
All right,
turn it into a.
our next item, we had moved the budget up to our next item.
Are we doing budget or warning or article warnings?
We had moved the budget up to before our article one.
Okay.
They go very hand in hand in my brain, but. I would say article one is right after budget.
I guess I don't understand that. You're thinking on that.
Why they go hand in hand?
Yeah,
Mostly just because the number of the budget ends up on the article. And that's just.
right, but I
That's
mean,
just how my brain works.
it's no big deal to add at any time. If there's people here in the audience that maybe want to talk about, stuff on the warning, why make them wait through all the
Maybe
budget?
there is. Maybe there's people here in the audience that are,
Does anybody here want to talk about the warning?
well, please hold. Could I finish my sentence? I heard what you said.
Okay,
Maybe there's a town employee or a joint shared employee that wants to talk about the budget here.
good
So
deal.
if you just sway it one way or another, we agreed to move it up Now, before the articles, unless the board would, whole board would like to shift it, that's why I'd like to keep it.
Whatever.
Okay. Have a brand new hot off the press budget. That, is this the one that you sent out at 3, Tom?
Yeah, this is one that came together with Rosemary, Duncan, 5, it was extremely valuable meeting.
Okay, good. And the large highlights for the big shift, we had talked on the phone. Freeing up cash on hand. Throwing mud at the wall. We're $40,000 higher to reduce taxes and cash on hand.
So we established for the first time, we actually established a cash on hand amount for the board to delegate to certain funds. That total amount is $210,198.94.
Where is that on?
That is on
This one.
the second,
Little one.
the second packet. It all goes together, but it's just two tables. And so if you go to page 2 of the second packet,
The total reserve.
the pros reservation, it's maybe like 2 inches down from the top. I'm gonna,
$4.99.
yeah.
It's an estimated 24-25 cash on hand balance. Thank you.
Yeah, so right here, we're looking at $210,198. And just for examples, we just put these numbers in these boxes, 150,000, the 20,000. Those are for you to decide on, how you want to, which funds you want to put that towards. But at 150,000, there were some, like, establishing that cash on hand value to go to reduce taxes by lowering the amount for paving and creating a paving plan, from 122,000 down to 75, and that's a 4-year grant cycle. And, well, I think those are really the 2 main things. It lowered the percentage down to 3.98% increase. 3.9. So that's very exciting. Like, we have a really presentable budget right now.
Because I only received this a couple hours ago, I have not had a chance to dive deeply into it.
Not a whole lot has changed since the 31st, just those quick highlights.
Added 40,000 of revenue and cut 45,000 from expense, basically. Give or take.
It would be great if the board tonight could establish, how you want to break up that $210,198. That wouldn't have a huge impact on next year's tax rate. And then I think we also need to just look at the idea of a paving plan, and if we can get those 2 things done tonight, the rest of it is going to be pretty small potatoes and changes.
Did you have a chance? We did talk quite a while about a paving plan and a spreadsheet and everything. Did you have a chance to look for that or build your own?
Jason and I took a tour last week, and we drove around. And we spoke to AOT, looks like Johnson's on a 4-year cycle. And so we are trying to match our paving based on a 4-year paving plan. And instead of doing it road by road, doing it by work stream, segment by segment, matching our MLPP model. And in doing that, our grant is $175,000 every 4 years. It's a 20% match, meaning we need about $40,000, but if we raise $75,000 a year. For paving, that would give us $300,000 plus $175,000. We'll be able to do $475,000 in paving because we have that reserve fund to carry over, and we'll be able to target worst first and kind of slowly bring Johnston back up.
475 every 4 years.
Correct. And by doing it in that type of paving plan, it means that our tax rate will stabilize, and that we're just going to float that 75,000 every year. And then as opposed to having 110 and then having a paving project in sight, or maybe drawing cash on hand. You know, this is a much cleaner plan, so now he's having people come out, Hutchins and Pike on Thursday to give a price for this next paving project next summer. And then one of our tours already looking at where's first on Hogback and some of these other areas in town where we need to start establishing, okay, this is the next 4 years. Railroad Street is one, River Road East is another one, but those include some drainage issues. And I think this paving plan is much bigger than just putting together a spreadsheet, but it's establishing first, that was first. Now we have a plan with money. It's like making that money now match the work, as opposed to having the work and then figuring out where the money's gonna come from. When you do it that way, you have to drop ebbs and flows of cash flow. Versus now we're following this flat track for budgeting and then making the work match our budget.
But we're actually reducing the amount that we're spending annually
Because we
on
want
$35,000.
That's what's crazy, right? Is because now we have a reserve fund and a plan. Before we were budgeting 110,000. And maybe we spent some of it, maybe we didn't, maybe we did $200,000 of paving based on 2 years. Because we did it to paving like in May, so it carried over into July. But now we're doing 475, so we're having paving companies come in. And we're consolidating resources and having them do different sections in town at the same time. So when you do $475,000 of paving, it's a lot cheaper, you get a lot more done than if you did 200,000 and 235,000 at 2 different times. And so by doing this, we're actually reducing the budget and getting the same amount of work done.
I'm not arguing the point about bundling and doing a large job. I'm just stating raw figures. We're reducing the amount that we're putting into pay by $35,000 a year.
And I've been trying to say. That concerns me a little bit.
Let's raise it up.
I understand like the reserve fund cleans things up, but my understanding is. That has always been held in cash on hand anyways, right?
Just for the past
Right,
year.
for the paving.
Just for the
Only
past,
for-
it hasn't
only
been
for
very
2
long.
years.
Well, no, it's been no 2.
I was gonna say it has to have been like 5. We did a paving project a while ago on account. Pile of cash on hand.
Before that, Rosemary, how were we paying for paving? We weren't. But if we just,
Annually.
cash flow,
Annually, yeah.
we put a line in the budget.
Mhm.
We put out an RFP for X amount of dollars and
See what we got.
spent that money, basically.
So it was just last year, we had like 300 grand.
Right.
Man, give or take. Why is that number, how was it 180?
Last time we paid was 2021, was Plot Road, right?
How we did quite good.
More recently.
Clay Hill is the most recent paving done.
Is that part of that 2021 paving grant?
No. No, that was Plot Road.
Rosemary shaking her head, yes.
I'm just trying to think.
Plot Road was done the year that I got on the board. We had a different road foreman at the time. We had decided it was too expensive. We ground the asphalt in with plan mix, blah, 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 blah. All of a sudden, the grant became available and we did it.
And that was a class 2 paving grant.
That was a class 2 paving grant, class 2 highway.
So anyways, when do we have to do this?
So the reason this is in red is because Jason's meeting with these guys on Thursday to get rough figures for his plan. And say his block of savings, say that project was only gonna cost 300,000. And then we have 175, and then we'll need 125,000, you know, and so that amount we save is gonna be based on his 4-year plan that he's building. And so this first time, we're gonna have enough, we already have 116, at the end of this year, we're gonna have 238. But for that future 75, that is gonna be based on Jason's plan for what's works first. How much is it gonna cost to do the work first? And based on that 4-year model, so say it's gonna cost 500,000, you have to take, 325,000 divided by 4, and that's how we start saving, and then. Every 4 years, you get a new analysis for the next project and how much is it gonna cost.
I'll try the new model. I've been told by everybody that we under budget for asphalt since I've been on board. That's where my concern comes from, but let's go for
You
it.
know, I think one of the things that is based on not having the cash on hand model in the past. It's like, once this plan is in place, this number could jump up to 200,000 on Thursday, we don't know. Well, we're only gonna find out once we actually have the numbers in place and the plan. But that's why it's red.
So right now it looks good, but if it jumped to 200,000, we would be in a completely different conversation.
The conversation would be Jason paid less. You know, we probably should, you know, that's what that would be my recommendation. Is build your plan, pay less.
I had a partner with that because I'm in the category of. We don't budget enough to pave the roads we got.
That's a better way of wording what I just said.
Yeah, on a routine and regular basis, and I think that's the analysis that we need to do, not,
But like, nobody
Right,
knows what that number
reserve.
is my point.
what's that?
Like, I think we all agree, we're saying the same things from different sides, is we don't know what that number is. This number is in red because we don't know what it is, like, it's like standing out as a sore thumb, hey guys, here's our weak link. And so Jason needs to put those numbers together, and when that happens, then we can fill that box in.
So if that's 70. So right now you've got the 75 under. Contribution to paving reserve. I guess what I'm.
We don't really even need that line, I guess, if we're going that way. Right?
Well, the reserve fund was established. Under. Funding it by 3 different methods.
Yeah.
Dedicated line item, surplus of, money unspent. From the paving capital line. Or annual surplus at the end of the year.
But what I'm not wrapping my mind around, Duncan, is. Do you wanna raise that number from 75,000 to 150,000 or something?
Well, I'm wondering why we wouldn't keep it at least at the 110 that it has been for the past few years.
Let's do it,
We can, it's easy enough to do.
Yeah, I don't think reducing it to,
there we go.
I think it fictitiously makes our increase look low. Especially going from 200 to nothing.
So now,
So
Yeah.
here's my argument. I'm fine with the extra line. I think it is very transparent and I like it.
If that's
Well,
the
we're
intent.
adding an extra line when if we put anything in paving blacktop capital, here's the wording. To be funded by any one of the blah, 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 blah. Any combination of a dedicated budget line. Year-end balance. Or a dedicated budget line, year-end balance from paving budget lines, we just put it anywhere in there.
Yeah.
Doesn't really matter, or reservation of year-end surplus. I guess it doesn't really matter, it's just,
so we.
I think this is more transparent, it just adds another line, which will get confusing to somebody in the future.
I think once this works, once you do this once, it's going to be the easiest budgeting process. Because now every year, that contribution to the reserve is only gonna change by the increase of your plan. And so it's gonna stay 110 forever. Where you have blacktop capital right above it, that's your actual project, maybe it's 500,000, maybe it's 400,000. And then the match to that is in the revenue you're gonna have.
Right. The difference.
And so, exactly, and that's how and that's what washes that budget to the increase, there's no true increase because the capital and revenue are gonna match.
So in the year that we actually did a project. The line. Surplus. The dedicated line. Could be 0. And the capital plan could be the amount of the paving project for that year.
Yeah.
Is that,
I think if say we had a project. What we would do is on here, on line 374, let's put 500,000. And then you go up to your revenue that matches that.
You bring in what, 390?
Yeah, you'd probably have two revenues, right? So you'd have. I don't know where we ended up putting it. So it's,
So this budget isn't really showing a
so
project.
paving reserve right here.
No, it's not.
We would put 375. And then we'd ask Rosemary to make an additional revenue that says, right now she has state highway grants, so we would put 175,000 in state highway grants. So it's $500,000 in revenue from grant funding and reserve funds, $500,000 in expense. So the project was a wash, which means it didn't raise any more taxes because we've been doing it in that every single year contribution to reserve.
Right.
So the only increase to taxes is the contribution to reserves.
And did I understand you to say that in 26, we're gonna be eligible for a class 2 paving grant?
I believe so. I think it's 2026.
And you think that's gonna be 175,000?
I'm texting Jason, right? Yeah, they're all 175, 20% in that. That's that retreatment grant, Sam.
Okay.
Um,
So the budget that we've got right now for 26 isn't showing a project.
no, because Jason needs to put those numbers on Thursday.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
But say we don't,
orange block will get filled in
correct,
as the total paving amount, and then we're gonna bring in money on the
revenue,
revenue side to offset.
which we only have 228,000. Because we'll have 110 from this year. Well, 122 from this year, 116 currently in reserves. We have 238 plus the 175 is the maximum our project can do. So Thursday is gonna be very telling. The size, if the size of the project is, and then what to base a plan off of. Because he's now gonna learn from Thursday's quote, how many feet he can do for reclamation, how many feet he can do to shim and overlay, and how many feet he can do for a total rebuild. And so that's important for us to budget, is you need to know how much it costs per 1,000 feet to do X, Y, or Z, because they're each very different.
And so I guess one question I have is, the budget line item 373, the 12,000 for annual maintenance. Are you thinking that 12 would be added to the total paving budget? Or that we would save some of that money out for maintenance?
That was something you brought up today, and I had it added to the contribution, but I think it makes more sense to leave it out, and I think your point is very valid, is to take care of crack sealing, line, any painting. Maybe we have a little bit of a washout where it like cuts off a corner. Leaving that 12,000 in, we can always add the unexpended amount because of the article to the contribution.
Yeah.
But we won't budget it as such, just so it's there to use as we want.
I don't know what the rest of the board thinks, but I think having that 12,000 available for maintenance is a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, I think I said that 2 meetings ago, 3 ago, said if we're not gonna do maintenance, just scrub the line.
Yeah, and I think
To me, maintenance is maintenance, capital is capital.
and I think what we used to do more of was crack sealing, and maybe we're all caught up on crack sealing, maybe we don't need to do it. I strongly suspect that's not actually the case, but in the past, we had also done some line striping, fog lines on class 3 roads, on roads that are otherwise done, and even on the class 2 roads. All the state does is the center line, they don't do fog lines, they don't do sidelines. So that's a place where that could be done if we decide we want to do it. And it might be a place for a speed limit sign on School Street, I don't know.
No speed limit signs. Speed bump. Not having a ton of time to look at it, I don't know if I can give heavy direction on where to put reserves for, that was like one of your questions, right?
I mean, I think,
I definitely think 20,000 to reappraisal sounds really weird because we did all the calculations, we signed the contract for the weeks, it's great. Maybe not.
I think it's a good idea, because Justin has indicated that he thinks he's gonna need some extra time.
Yeah.
When, during the time of the reappraisal, and to me. That would be a perfectly valid use for those reserve funds.
what did you say? He's recommended in budgeting 4 to 8 hours additional a week during the reappraisal time. So that way we. Significant. That'd be up to, you know, anywhere from $3,600 to $7,800 additional plus, you know, all the
That's,
taxes.
yeah, so like plus 8,000, we need 20 extra, do we need 20,000 extra?
Well, it's a 3-year process, so that would cover that 3 years. You have to add it next year, I guess.
Yeah, we can add it every year, that 8,000 extra or something. It frees up some cash, but. It's not my sole decision.
What does the rest of the board feel like? Do you want to budget for the whole reappraisal process now, or do you want to spread it out over the next couple of years?
What do we got in the fund right now?
My sense is,
We can add that.
I want our tax increase to be below 5%.
You want it below 5. So if we took that 20 and put it up, let's see what that does.
I do want to see what it does.
Was it 79? But did we not, but. Cash on the end then after that.
The reappraisal fund is 97 right
Or
now.
97, yeah.
We're putting in, what did we put in for,
13 from the grand list.
no, well,
Put extra for this last.
yeah, we
We put
had
it
some surplus, was it 20?
Was it 20? I mean, it's right here in the sheet.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's, right, yeah.
What's the?
Yeah, we chunked another
It
20,000.
goes towards $150,000.
Then you got 13,000 to go in there.
The 13 to go in,
Does it raise up more above 5?
Yeah, well, put this at 140, 97 and 20 is 117 and 13. It's gonna be 140.
and the reappraisal's 150 something.
We'll say another 15,000 for additional in-house labor, so that's 165, we're short 45,000. And we're gonna get
Oh, we have-
26,000 over the next 2 years,
Yeah.
so that puts us at 20,000 short. We put. Some, either if we don't do it now, there should be an earmark for future years to, we need to come up with that.
I'd spread the burden. That's just me.
You what,
I'd spread the burden. That's just me.
like over several years or over different,
Cut it to 10 and 10. That's just me. I wasn't saying I'd spend the 10 to reduce taxes.
Start out there, that's what Mark suggested. So that, by increasing paving to 110, and then. By taking 10,000 of the reappraisal and moving it up to reduce taxes, we're at 5.12% increase, which is, we want to be under 5. Let's keep going, so close.
I think we need to cut expenses.
Well, let's finish finish this 210 breakout.
I'm not gonna finish that 210 breakup until I'm ready to sign it. The board can decide what they want to do. I mean, out of my head, right? The capital equipment's not here, and I don't know where the difference is in the formula that I did, you did, but it is still showing a negative. And you would remove the backhoe, that made me think either mine are way off or something different. We're still showing a negative in 2030. I'd throw that excess 10,000 at the capital. But that's just me, the board has to decide. Tax anticipation reserve fund, where is that at, Rosemary?
Down below, same sheet, it's kind of in green, it's currently at.
What's the balance? Oh, it's in this one?
See how it says 310,000?
310, 780.
And then add any reservations from last year.
What was our reservation from last year? I feel like we robbed this one a couple of years in a row. Maybe I could be wrong.
We had 20.
So it's
last year.
330, and what's our overall budget?
It's 3.5.
It's 3.5, so we could have 350,000,
We could have
is that,
up to 10%.
and the interpretation was that we could use, yes, 3.55, so we could have 355,000. The interpretation was Rosemary, I'm asking you, we could use some of that money to balance out grant projects that are getting reimbursed. I know we had kind of asked vaguely. Because we keep talking about cash flow issues and
As
needing
opposed to taking
to
out
go get a line
credit.
of credit, but if we plan properly with our money now,
I mean,
do we need to go as far? Maybe not.
all of the reserve funds, if they're in the general, that's not, it's in the general fund, right?
It's in general check flow here.
Yeah, exactly, yeah, all general fund accounts like that are actually, because the way government works, you operate in arrears. So you should have zeros, technically you should have $0 as of July 1st until your first quarterly tax bill. So you always borrow against that, we've been bought, that's why we have it, that's what protects us from interest in that first quarter. And then as you wear down your first quarter, it protects you in interest in your second quarter, et cetera, et cetera.
We borrow against ourselves instead of going to the bank and borrowing.
I understand what the tax anticipation reserve funds for. Right now, they're highlighted, but we're expecting our first quarter costs to be 415,000.
That needs to be updated.
Yeah,
Okay,
That's
so
gonna
it's
be-
gonna be higher than that.
correct. Anything that's highlighted.
I think we should throw some money at the tax anticipation reserve fund. I don't know if we need an extra 10,000 in the grant match reserve fund.
So that was highlighted orange to reduce taxes because the rail trail has some grants out. They don't have clear answer yet on exactly what their project costs are. But they're gonna need about $10,000 for the match, the town match. So we can either A, budget that as an expense and raise taxes 10,000, or we can use the surplus from last year to reduce that by 10,000. We need that 10,000 regardless. We committed to the.
A lot of that surplus last year that went in there was already earmarked for the industrial park, right? But didn't we put $12,000 in it the year before? To my knowledge, we haven't used a penny of that.
Yeah, 12,043 is what's currently in that.
That's not here.
Well, that's not here.
So we could bring 10,000 in revenue. Or maybe we could budget 2,000 in expense and bring the 10,000 in revenue, because we have a line item for it. Throwing ideas at the wall here.
Well, if you do, if the concept is to reduce expenses. Doug was proposing in their budget to put $10,000 into, or put 10,000 in the annual budget to meet the match. My suggestion was take 10,000 out of the surplus, put it in the reserve fund and use it for the match. It's half a dozen one, six of the other, basically.
And so
If
why are you suggesting that, Duncan?
It reduces the amount to be raised in taxes by 10,000, lowering the tax rate. Because we've already collected it in a previous
It's
year.
$10,000 of money that we had. June 30th of 24 that we're proposing. To put in a fund for 25 so we can spend it in 26.
As opposed to.
You got that, Paul?
Like hamburgers.
Yeah,
Yes, Charlie.
so I went to the rail trail meeting. And I asked Doug point blank, he had grants to cover his match, so that he didn't need any matching funds from the town. The $10,000 that they talked about at that meeting was for their committee expenses, which I thought was kind of excessive.
I think I have a different understanding.
So, yeah, so you got a problem how they do their accounting, I guess.
That's not what I was told.
You have minutes?
I just have the notes,
Well-
but I feel pretty confident that the 10,000 was just, they thought they might in the future, maybe they could use that. I don't think that was based on a current need. I think it was just kind of a number they thought, oh, maybe that would be helpful at some point.
Do you know if there was an upcoming grant that maybe they were planning on applying for?
that was my understanding. That there was
Okay.
a grant that they were
Okay,
planning on applying for.
so if
I
we have,
asked Doug point blank about his match, and he said his match was covered by Riot. So he didn't need 10,000.
it'll be money in, money out
Okay.
this
it's
way,
not
so
even-
if it's not needed, I don't think it'll be brought in. Would be my guess. My point is, if we have 12,000 on earmarked, do we wanna put 10 in and take 10 out, or put 5 in and take 10 out? I understand it trickles it, but it frees up cash on hand for the other things I've mentioned.
And, you know, I think we can expect that somebody's gonna come along during the course of the year and say, we need some grant match.
My hope is that's the case. It's been there for how long? When was it
We
done?
just established that 2 years ago, that grant match fund.
It would be great if somebody brought it up. Maybe inevitably. It'll happen.
Well, I think we should probably hear from the rail trail committee. It was my understanding that they had a specific grant that they wanted to apply for that required a match. I think you're right, Charlie, in as much as the grants they currently have, they have community,
My community fund.
community foundation fund. Will cover the match. I mean, that's what we've been told all along.
Yeah.
Right.
Is that the existing grants that they've gotten out there, the match can be met to the community fund. The money that we already have,
Right.
and you have that.
Could we beat this one?
Check that in the cash on hand.
The board can make a decision without me.
This is one of those things that if you guys would establish tonight, it would make Thursday a lot faster. And so I think if you have to just pick a goal for the rest of the meeting tonight, whatever that is, doesn't matter. But then it kind of, somebody can have a start and an end to the budget discussion.
My goal offhand. I'll go first, so the board's just gonna laugh at me. Like to see it with $140,000 reducing taxes and expenditures cut, so. We get there.
Expenditures cut by what?
So we can get to whatever your fictitious percentage increase of the tax.
Why did you drop it from 150,000?
Because I think we need more cash on hand to not deplete reserves to the point where we put a future select board in a bad position. That's just me. I mean, we could sit here and just not put $165,000 towards the capital equipment fund, and we would look like rosy people on our tax rate. Right? Be about 8%.
We can actually lower our tax rate.
I think it would be dumb. But we could.
So I'm not sure that I heard what you're suggesting.
Who wants to?
Other committees, people need to cut expense. Somewhere, some way, shape or form. To get the tax percentage down. I don't only want to be using cash on hand. To trim our percentage increase.
So what are your recommendations? Where do you want to cut? It's easy to say.
And the other thing I think that the board should do is.
I've had this in front of me.
We've never established a percent increase. We've talked about 2.5%, we've talked about under 5%. But I think if you gave a committee to say, the committees have no direction. And I think if you said, hey, guys, we do not want any more increase greater than 3.5%. And if you're gonna be over 3.5, then you need to come up with a revenue source to match that, to offset it. And I think if you guys could at least do that, then you can provide those committees to make their own recommendations to cut their own budgets.
Well, the thing is that you're dealing with 47,000 less in Highland.
Absolutely. We have a revenue problem, not.
Right
the
there, we
expense
have a
problem.
revenue problem,
That's right.
so if I pick a number that says 4.75%. And already we're down 47,000. We have to tell committees and road crew and capital and everybody, it's gonna be more than.
If I were. If I had any, I don't live here, I don't have any skin in the game. But I would what I see is we have a revenue problem that's outside of the town's control. It's completely legislative.
You mean pilot, yeah.
Correct. And that 47,000 is significant.
It is.
And we have an expense problem that's outside of our control.
Well, I think if we separated it out by committee and just, once you give them direction to say, hey, we have a revenue problem outside of our control. If they could take care of themselves and hit that 3.5, let them, trust them to take care of themselves. And when you guys can look at this, then you have your cash on hand at 210,000. If we go from 110 to 157,000 and put less into some of those reserves, we covered our own revenue problem. The select board took care of that problem, the revenue problem, but then the committees, we're not putting the onus on the committees to solve the revenue problem. We're letting them deal with what we say is reasonable. But it does feel kind of immoral to say, okay, you know, we need you to solve this problem, you know, whereas what do you want them to do? Give them the direction, and I'm sure all of them will take care of it on their own.
But is
Do we have time to do that?
the committees really where the money is anyways?
Absolutely not. It's like,
No, the committees are peanuts.
it's all highway and emergency services. That's like,
And
Emergency services is 25% of the total budget.
that's right. And then highway
It was
is
25. It was
highway is
27 last
40%.
year.
And then you're looking at office salaries and office insurance, and then the rest is like.
There should be a formula. Right.
There is.
it seems to me that
Probably
we're,
right.
that we're
It's 26.
going
105.
after.
There you go.
We're just pissing people off.
Yeah, I don't want to ask committees.
Exactly.
I mean, committees are what make the town worth living. Nobody went to
So
Johnson.
let's cut public safety. Committees are what make.
You want to cut it? I'm with you. I'll cut it. Let's cut it.
You can cut it. Go for it.
Yeah, now. Well, I would cut that. in a heartbeat.
Which one?
I would cut I would tell the sheriff's department. Not getting all the action.
And rely on the state police.
No, I would just say, Roger, we've decided that, this is stressing our budget, what you're asking for, and we're gonna take 25,000 out of it.
So you'll make that call by Thursday?
We'll make it tonight.
Well, I talked to Roger and he said he couldn't cut it a penny.
No, were you surprised?
Well, not really, but I thought he would give me an honest answer.
Oh.
After all, he is a sheriff.
You're very honest.
So that makes
Probably
it straight shooter.
he's the highest
Supposed to.
paid in the state, right?
Pardon me?
Isn't he
We're
high?
getting a little bit, off track here.
I don't believe so.
If Mark wants to call and say he wants Roger to cut 25,000, I'm in support of you making that call.
Okay, I'll be glad.
I don't see any other board members making an objection. As long as there's no reduction in service.
No, I'll give him a call.
Give him a call, tell him we need him to sharpen his pencil. I mean,
Official
we're
truth.
talking here.
I mean, if you're gonna tell Roger to cut his, are we gonna tell somebody else they need to cut theirs too?
I mean,
They,
Roger only went up 3%, Nans went up 8 or 9, didn't it?
they wanna, yeah, big time.
But he came and he justified it.
I thought Nance did a good
Yeah,
job of
yeah,
justifying it.
and
I
I'm
don't,
sure Roger would justify his budget if he, I mean,
in the past, he's come right here and walked us through it.
Yep.
yeah, and there is there's a committee, a subcommittee, whatever you wanna call it, a sheriff's advisory board. I don't think that was on that, or anybody.
That was on other. One.
Yeah.
Where would you like to cut it?
You always worry about me spending the money and you making it. Let's switch roles.
Well, I just did. But you said you want to cut, so I'm
I
curious.
would have to actually look at the.
I'm gonna stick a wrench in the works here. I'm gonna relax to the sheriff's department. We hear rumblings about the sheriff's department every single year, about how much it costs. Why don't we let the voters decide whether or not they want to maintain a contract with the sheriff or go with the state police?
Through government.
Let the voters decide what they want to do.
I'm not in favor of that, but other board members weigh in.
I would weigh in, Michael, to the extent that for years Roger would come here and say, I've got the college. I'm spending lots of time at the college. It's not spending lots of time at the college. That used to be, you know, in parties on Railroad Street, that used to be a big, what he would sell to me as a big driver of his budget. And I can guarantee you, he's not up at the college like he used to be.
Well, I use that as my talking point. Been all there, I'll try again.
I believe that Johnson does receive more calls than the other two towns. With of all their citations are all here.
So you, Evan, you've got ideas that you're gonna come with after you look at this, where you
We
like
could,
that?
we could tell Roger to target 25,000 for our revenue from law enforcement. How much did we used to get, Rose?
What's that?
Our revenue from law enforcement? Years ago.
Oh, over 10,000, now it's down to 4 or 5
Maybe,
for tickets.
is that because they're writing less tickets?
I got a warning the other day, and I said,
You got a warning?
it did right outside the high school.
Well, right,
First time I got pulled over.
If you're gonna get pulled over, would you get it in Johnson limits?
Yeah.
The school actually in session, or that light just blinks even during vacation.
It was 8:55 and I was worried about being late to work.
so
You don't have to tell us anymore.
this
You could
is,
incriminate yourself.
this is a perfect example. I believe I had said. Our first meeting on the budget, this, our second, where's the bleeding stop? Revenue's down, costs are up. Why is the revenue down that far?
Well, I know that.
We know why costs go up too.
There is legislation, I mean, if you, now that we're back in session, legislation,
Yeah.
whenever that starts, we could get after there is proposals to make legislative change to adjust how the formula for pilot is, or at least to do a whole legislative hold. And I think knowing that would help our budget by as much as 26,000. If they did a legislative hold on last year's number, last year's CLA, that would save us 26,000. If they did a different evaluation, so it wasn't based on the CLA, but based on the true appraisal. That would save us about 50,000. Well, 30,000. So just. That place is valued at 661,000, I think. Is that right?
No, man.
8.6 million or something? I don't know what it is. It's a lot. But we're only paying, we're losing, every time our CLA goes down, we're losing that percentage of that value.
Which I don't understand.
It's a screwy formula.
Screwy formula.
We would do the reappraisal tomorrow if there was somebody to do it, but we couldn't get a contract for 4 years. And so
Well, it wouldn't matter. Well, yeah.
you know, we're getting penalized because of a labor issue that we can't get a contractor in here to do the reappraisal. And at the tune of tens of thousands of dollars a year.
We're getting penalized because they figured out the correct formula for charging the school tax. They didn't figure out the correct formula when figuring out pilot payment.
There's at least logic to the school CLA.
There's logic to the
no
pilot
logic.
payment.
Well, there is.
It's the reverse logic.
Yeah, reverse logic.
Yeah.
It's logic that benefits the.
And the idea is that if one town is at 120%, the one town is at 80%, that the town should not be penalized on poor listing, you know, because.
But we can't be the only, I mean, my.
No, I looked it
theory
up.
is we can't be the only one.
There's like 2 towns in the state that are getting more. Their
Really?
CLA is over 100. But everybody else.
But they probably did a reappraisal in like 2021, they got it earlier.
Right, every other town's getting along.
They must be getting it. Yeah.
Is it time to move on to employee organization?
Tom's asked questions, I haven't been able to answer them, I feel like I've
We
communicated,
don't, it would be
but the
great
board hasn't really weighed in heavily to answer your questions here.
if we just have a goal for Thursday, so, you know, we come and we kind of move all over the place. It would be great if on Thursday we could have a target, we say we're gonna establish X, we're gonna establish Y, and then. walk away with questions, but at least that's like tied up, you know, and done.
And you want a percent target?
I want a percent, I would love a percent target and I would love the cash on hand allocated. Those two things are gonna be so key in answering your questions about what to share.
And are you asking for cash on hand allocation toward reducing taxes?
Ultimately, yes, but the amount you put towards the funds dictates how much you put towards that.
I'm gonna throw something else in the mix that I think you've been saying for weeks, and I think you said the same thing. We need to decide on the capital budget plan. Because to me, that's really key to a lot of other moving parts of the budget. We haven't done that yet. We haven't looked at the capital budget
No,
as a board. I've looked at it
As
individually.
soon as the town plan is done, that should be I mean, unfortunately, I don't think we can get it this year, but we.
No, I mean that what the capital budget plan that's in the budget right now that relates back to,
the blue sheet.
Of the highway.
yeah, the highway capital plan, yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't mean the global, but I meant just the highway sheet.
Do you want to do that now, or is that a target for Thursday to establish?
We'll do that, the employees, the salaries, and we'll have those ironed out or questions
Tonight or Thursday?
Thursday. But I don't have time today.
That's what,
And this is not gonna change between now and Thursday. I won't receive one late Thursday.
we'll probably receive one at 6:13 p.m. right before the meeting on Thursday.
Well, that's very difficult. If you want me to dig in and get familiar with
You know,
one, and I get it difficult.
The only thing that changed is based on our meeting today. You know, I told you I'd have it to you by December 31st, and I had it to you on December 31st. And the only thing that changed was when Rosemary and Duncan and I met. And we hashed out this cash on hand value, which is enormous. The rest of it, we can talk about right now and establish. Nothing else has changed.
You say nothing else, but
Well, the other-
that and paving.
The
Yeah,
page,
but those are like pretty small peanuts, and you can put paving right back the way it was and talk about it.
Right.
Yeah.
and at the end of the day, if we're talking about a project and we're bringing money in from the reserve fund, then that impact on the overall budget should very.
Should be money in, money out.
Right.
If the project comes out to need an extra 20,000,
Have we done anything tonight that changes that?
We changed 75 to 110. Which,
So that's what brought it up to 5,
uh,
something.
oh yeah, but we changed 75 to 110 and then you increased 150 to 160, right?
so that puts us, right now, we're at 5.12. And then it's. You know, these theoretical values for cash on hand, if these are established, and it doesn't matter what numbers you put in. Really, but if we could establish that. That would really solve a big chunk of that. Because now we're back, by changing those numbers there, now we're back to 5.57. And. The cash on hand value. And putting those where they belong is something that. Whether you decide to do it tonight or decide to do it Thursday, it doesn't matter, they're from 2024 numbers. You know, we just,
I think the number, the baseline that we're starting with is not gonna change.
correct,
So it's really a matter of where we allocate it.
that's right.
You're correct. I'm the only one that threw a number out when you asked that question. I said 140.
To reduce taxes.
To reduce tax, yeah.
And then get the rest of the savings from reducing expenses. Is that your idea?
Ideally, yes.
And I think the only way we're realistically gonna
I mean,
hit that nut is by hitting, going to the committees. Historical societies, 0.13% of the budget. You ain't gonna get your savings
well,
there. Library technically has control over their budget. I mean, the taxpayers could say,
they
we want to reduce the budget by X and we want it to come from the library, but David Williams has always been on the opinion
Right.
that you can't do it by line item.
Right, the library is in charge of their budget, but correct me if I'm wrong, this is our budget.
It is, and the library's budget is within our budget.
It is, I mean, we could. Why can't we trim the library budget out and they can go in front of the voters themselves if they want 100%? We could ask them to do that. Their revenue goes down every year and their expense goes up every year.
They give a really great explanation for why they're so expensive this year. A, nobody's coming in because to use the services that they pay for. Because they're in a temporary location and they're paying to maintain 2 locations. So there's, I mean,
That does raise a question, why are we needing the other one?
because we were told that the building needs to maintain heat, because it's a brick building, and if we don't, it'll risk the integrity of the structure.
We'll move across the move.
The bricks won't.
Hmm.
They're gonna
That
move
kinda
down the
goes
road.
without saying.
I mean, we also in that explanation got, well, these are overly conservative numbers. I'm not telling any one person what to do, but if the services aren't being used and you know you're gonna be in a temporary location, why pay for them for a year? Maybe let them lapse and renew them next year. I don't know, where there's a will, there's a way.
Well, one of the reasons
So you're
I brought up the
suggesting the
library
library
question to begin with was I was hoping, I doubt that they're gonna be able to trim their expenses a whole lot. But could they increase the revenues? Over time, could they? And nobody seems to wanna do this, but to me, it's a no-brainer, you know, could they? Ask for a plan, you know, put out an effort for plan giving. You know, amongst the patrons to,
Yeah.
you know, they've got the Roger Jones Fund. You know, one,
In 2008, I worked at Habitat for Humanity in Portland, and Plan Giving was probably the most successful resource to get through that time.
there's a lot of places that do it, and they raise a lot of money, and anything that they can raise. Is an amount that we don't have to pay for our taxes.
Like a funding campaign.
Yeah, like a capital fund campaign.
Yeah, I mean. At the end of the day, I said it earlier and you just said it again, you can reduce expenses or you can increase income. Why is the sheriff's department income going down? Their expenses go up every year and I get it.
Well, I can. Yeah, the fact that you got a warning instead of a ticket. Is indicative of something.
Yeah,
And I know in the past, they've said, oh, we can't enforce it because the speed limit signs are too far apart, or this or that or the other thing. The reason it doesn't get enforced is their officers don't go to court, because if you don't go to court and you contest the ticket, it gets thrown out.
Against the whole idea of thinking that we're gonna raise money by ticketing speeders. I think that is just a terrible thing.
Minuscule.
I voted against it when they passed the legislature. Because there are towns that just say, give more tickets. We're getting toward the end of the month, we need more money. And I just think that is one of the, Danville used to be notorious for that.
What they found out is that it disproportionately affects lower income individuals, and it prevents people from getting to work due to registrations, inspections. It's not,
It's a dumb
Right.
thing, it's a dumb thing.
are you telling me that I should stop registering and inspecting my vehicle? Cause I don't think vehicles are a right, I think they're a privilege and there's a set of rules and I follow those.
Well, most people do.
Apparently we can't penalize people that don't.
Because there's, well, we can get into a lot of discussions.
It's the same deal with people not paying their taxes.
You're using one example,
We can bring in a
But-
lot of revenue
Mark,
on schools.
if we raise $5,000 in 10 different locations,
To me, the
right?
more important part of that discussion is to try and get people to friggin' slow down.
If we raise $5,000 in 10 different locations, there's a difference. We're good, okay,
All right.
or better.
It's nice of you to be thinking about revenue raising ideas. I think giving tickets to,
One example,
poor people is.
funding campaign for the library is another one. Charlie
So I'm
is
curious,
gonna donate for us? We might need to start our own funding campaign and our.
Oh, absolutely.
Wants to donate.
I want to done. I'm unclear, I thought that the only way we got revenue from enforcement was enforcement of town ordinances. That we would get a portion of that money, that we don't get any money out of speeding tickets, as an example.
Well, a speed limit ordinance is a town ordinance. So when you go
Not
to,
a state highway.
On a town highway.
is on a town highway, but the state, you can also, if you designate the state. There's the ability to designate state highway speed limit enforcement, so the town does get revenue from tickets issued on state highways.
At the end of the day, the answer to your question is, there's no enforcement.
Ferguson, Missouri, here we come.
I don't get the analogy, but
Well, Ferguson, Missouri was a reason.
New Hampshire has the highest speeding tickets in the country.
Huh?
New Hampshire has the highest speeding tickets in the country.
Yeah, but I don't.
Do they really?
Yeah, there's people from Boston going down.
I mean, if you were thinking 140 to reduce taxes, what were you thinking about doing with the additional 70,000?
Trimmed it from 150 to 140, really was only 10 and change, and with. I had expressed concern about tax anticipation reserve fund. And the capital equipment fund specifically.
What were you thinking to do with the 10,000 capital equipment or?
I appreciate the question. It feels like your questions are directed only at me and it's a board decision. If you want me to fill them in and we can use them at our next
Well,
meeting,
here's
that's fine.
the Jackson. I would keep it at 150. So I disagree with that.
We're disagreeing, Mark. How dare you?
Well, I tried to reduce our taxes by.
There's a huge value
Just do
in putting
2
this
months down.
down, you know, and it,
I think it's really important to take a look at the capital plan that's in there. And because some of the concerns that you're raising have to do with that fund balance getting into negative territory at
Yeah,
some
go
point
down.
in the future. So I think that's, when I say that, to
This
me,
has to
that's
be
an important
updated
part of
from
the
the one
budget
that-
process.
Something changed in this from the December 31st.
I agree with you, Dr. And I think it was, and I think we
Say
should
that.
run our equipment a little longer than we do.
December.
I think we turn it over quicker than we should.
Well, that's
least the way
something
it's showing
we've
up
talked
right now.
about, is trying to look at that. Yeah, look at a realistic plan.
This version, I have no concern. I was just telling Tom, the December 31st version. At least the way my computer downloaded it.
yeah, December 31st shows the same.
Oh, it showed negative when we put the. When we put the backhoe back in. Our numbers didn't line up at all, and I wanted to know where the difference was. Like the sheet that came from offline to this, there's a formula that changed somewhere. If we threw the backhoe back in at the same rate that it was before. Maybe we don't replace it, maybe we shift it out more, I'm not sure. And that's when we were getting into
I can
negative.
go with your approach. Quiet.
I think that we're. Which one's this?
So this is, before any changes, this is December 23rd at.
Yeah, this is before the one online,
7:52 p.m.
right? But when we brought the one in online and had the correct number for tobacco, it wasn't negative online. But when I added the tobacco back to the one that's in here, it went negative and I was wondering why. I'll have to look deeper. It's a concern.
That's great. And, let me know what you need for Thursday.
Does anybody else have anything?
I think we're close. To me, getting the numbers on the paving will be important to finalize the budget. I don't think it's gonna ultimately change too much in the bottom line. But it's important to get the numbers correct.
Certainly. The other one on the agenda was the Lister budget questions.
I still got a question on the budget itself. We have a rec coordinator, correct?
Yes,
He's getting paid,
Correct.
under alpha salaries.
so it's not gonna be under the rec committee.
It used to be that way and then that changed, before my time actually. That's how it was paid, I think maybe when Heather was here or maybe when. But at some point, if you go under estimated salaries, I would like to not put it on the screen just for the public. But it does show the right coordinator.
I don't know how the rest of the board feels, but it actually should be under the recreation committee.
We had this discussion the last couple of years in a row.
Put it in under estimated salaries and we put CADS under estimated salaries and then we also put listers. So all the salaries are together.
That was during the 2 years I was gone. Okay, well,
Yeah.
I still think it should be there.
I'm indifferent as long as we're budgeting properly.
I tend to agree with Mike.
Me.
I'd kind of like to see those things in there all the way across the board, but not enough to make an issue out of it.
Oh, yeah,
You can show them that it's there, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
I mean, I can be a jerk any other place, I don't have to be on here.
Yeah, we change this estimated salaries spreadsheet, where it'd have to, they would be subcategories like the library or highway. And they would have their own formulas for insurance and et cetera, et cetera.
So. Not to be a dead horse, but I've got a pinched nerve in my neck and my arm is beginning to give me shooting pains. So I'm either gonna go home and you guys can finish up or we can move on and talk about the warning. I'd love to talk about the warning.
Do we want to go over the listers questions quickly?
Okay.
Or do you want to do the warning and we can come back to Justin's question?
Okay.
Justin, you want to go over the listers questions? Kevin, you got your report there, Tom. Justin is here.
What you doing?
It's like. Our healthcare system is so bad, we don't operate in the doctors.
Tell me about that. I certainly concur with that.
Well, I'll tell you what, I can't sleep at the
We've got 35,000. 35,000. And then try and work it back.
Yeah,
You want to see what 20,000 now?
No, you've got 35.
I mean, it's really, yeah, it's all.
You can't just, we had this conversation earlier, but that's data driven. Tom's like, it's. Come on. We liked it last year.
Got 20,000 now, you're at 4.6. You hit your target. Imagine your target. It's low on all that priorities. That's cool.
Thanks for coming in, Justin. This is the email, but there's some notes in here.
Yeah, and it's about form, so mine's, for me, it's less about the numbers so much. But I did on the second page, or the reverse on your first page. I wrote down some preliminary numbers that give you an idea of what it'll cost. So, starting with the flood files. I've got most of them put away now, it's not the current use and a couple other ones. I estimate that to be about 16 hours worth of time, unavoidable, or about $960 gross. I didn't know what to put down for my gross wage, so I put $60 an hour, maybe a little bit under that, but just so.
So that was dealing with files that got flooded.
Yep. The
Take a
property,
picture of it.
the property
That's
information.
reimbursable through FEMA.
So, are there any questions about the property information forms?
I thought that was great.
There's a lot of info on there, and I hope there's a return. I don't know if it'll be excessive, but every bit helps, right?
Public record transparency, the property information forms are forms to be mailed out to all property owners in the town of Johnson. Since Johnson doesn't have zoning, it's great because there's a lot of freedom in town, but not a lot of people report the changes to their property, so we don't have an accurate grand list as far as the valuations go throughout the town. So this form will ask people to report changes on whether it's can lead to a decrease or increase in value either way. There's examples on here of whether you add a deck, remove a deck, add a building, remove a building, wastewater systems and so on. So that would be mailed out in January sometime before February, well, by the beginning of February. Ask them to send it back in March by April 1st. We can do appointments or I just go and visit the property either way. And people will get change notices in the springtime and they come and talk about that, et cetera, et cetera. Realizing that is an increase in the budget, I just want to make sure that the select board is okay with that. I estimate that to be around $3,120 annually, based on the 16-hour growth and 52 hours go into that. That would be to make the forms, mail the forms, receive the forms, schedule the appointments, visit the properties, enter the data, and then mail out the mailings and have additional hearings.
And this is just for June, I'm hopeful, right? If
Yeah.
nobody sends anything back, it's.
Yeah, it could be a lot more, it could be a lot less. Yes.
I have a question on that. Do you think that needs to be an annual event? Can we do it every other year or something like that, so that,
It could be either way. If we do it annually, we would have that postage cost annually, but hopefully we would have fewer reports. Whereas we'd have a larger amount of reportings, I presume, if we did biannually or every other year.
I think you're being optimistic.
Do you think so? I'm basing this off of the town of Albany. That's where I started my municipal career, and they sent out these type of notices along with the dog information forms to other property owners, and dare I say they received probably 50 back anyway. In a small town, I think that's a pretty good return, but completely different town, so.
What percent was it?
Yeah, there's over 500 parcels, I think.
is there?
So 10%.
We could send those out with? Can we send them out with property to annual property tax? Bill, Rosemary? or-
That doesn't go up with the law.
We did that in Peachum, we did, our listers sent notices with every tax bill, it's like, and then every like, donation form. But
Yeah, I mean, so you'd be late for the,
But it could go out
for
with
the
like
30.
the January installment, or it could go out with the November installment.
We don't send by installments, once a year.
You just send all four installments once. But even the
One
town bill,
bill.
we have 1,100 parcels. Yes. So for 700 parcels, about $560. So
1,356 taxable parcels and 1,510 total parcels.
we used to do it through L Brown and Sons, you send them a PDF and they mail and stop for like 75 cents per mailing. So that way there's no labor hours. It's so much cheaper. You're paying just like a quarter more per envelope and you're done and it gets out. They have like all the stuffing machines, rather than paying $60 an hour for, like your skills should be used to assess properties, not stuff envelopes, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of, I was wondering if there might be someone in mailing that could combine it and say, send that a separate email.
Yeah, because the postage alone would be between 989 and 1,102. Down from the bill.
Right.
So, and I'm open to that. If we send them out with the tax bills, the timing would be a little bit different, but if we just put in it's already in there, but valuations are equal first, so they can report accordingly and.
The other one's the assessor assistant.
So that would really well having Mimi help out in the fall. And she was getting $20 an hour. She's requesting 25 to 27. The position was originally posted for 18 to 20. She's level 4 assessor. Her skills are appreciated, but they're not necessarily needed for this specific position. I do appreciate the professionalism and reliability that she offered. A lot of part-time positions. Reliability can be hard to come by with them, but not impossible.
I think we'll look at all these Thursday. I could be wrong, maybe the board wants to enter, plug them in tonight or talk about it. I like the information. Are we carrying any money for listers contracted services, and do we still need Terry for as much as we had?
No, I've given her.
She was on the news the other week, by the way.
Oh, actually. Yeah, I've talked to her maybe twice regarding Johnson this year, maybe. So very seldomly do I need her assistance.
Yeah.
So not that.
It's pretty minimal. We're gonna have to have a meeting on the 5 towns here pretty soon.
I thought there was a lister contracted expense.
Oh, yeah, do you have a?
There is a-
Yeah, it was like contracted services. Yeah.
Yeah, I dropped that to 2,000 to match the cost of the employee.
Right, but if we're dropping off Harry,
This is purple because I don't know why, what that 8,000 is, a lister contracted services. It's like, I think we moved that, is that correct?
most of it didn't,
I couldn't update the GL today, didn't Nemrick ever come back online?
very late.
Yeah, so that 7,900 will be minimal, will be reduced if it's your cost.
Yeah, I think it's still $7,000.
Okay.
the training's just a flat $500 to $600 roughly, right?
That's what I was thinking.
And the reappraisal, you walk me through that, no, do we just need to carry additional 4 hours per year?
So, that should be additional 4 to 8 hours.
4 to 8 hours
Yeah, 4 to 8 hours.
weekly for the whole year?
Yes,
Okay.
in talking with multiple other towns, the assessor lister's office workload increases by 50 to 100% during reappraisal. So I'm currently at 8 hours, so that could be at 12 to 16 hours.
Yeah, give or take. Which we were kind of talking about throwing some excess money in there. But that's a good one for like. Throw a reserve fund. I appreciate that though.
To note with this, I put down like the payments due, so. The payments start in July of 2027 at $6,250 per month, so that's when you'll have to. Your budget for it.
2027.
Yeah.
July of 2027.
Yeah, that's first payment due, and there's for 24 months.
It's like a long ways away. I won't even be here.
Also, with your budget, do you have? It accounted for the towns paying back in, I'm presuming you do, but that. Though I'm a full-time employee of Johnson, you have revenue coming from other towns to put towards that cost.
It's shown as
We've talked about it a couple of times. We show the cost. Of you, right? We don't show the revenue and full
We only show
expense.
costs
We
of
sh-
Justin's.
We show the
portion
town
for
of
that.
Johnson's cost. And Rosemary has a separate,
Yeah, we bill out to the other towns.
So the
It's not on
income
the budget.
expense or whatever,
It's not included.
what about the extra $100 a month we're getting for ad?
That's in there.
Like somewhere there.
Will
just
be,
stays in
what will affect, the interlocal contract is the additional hours you're gonna put in for Johnson. If that puts you over 40 hours a week.
Yeah.
Any given week, that's gonna end up being
I'm not worried about overtime personally. Since I'm 30-hour way right now, that put me at 34 to 38. So I think we could work with other towns and keep it within that 40. The St. George reappraisal starts. St. George and Berkshire start July of 25. St. George ends June of 26. Then Hyde Park starts, and then when Berkshire ends the following year, Johnson comes in, so it's a constant rotation the way it's set up right now. So
So there aren't gonna be overlapping. Years, okay.
no more than 2 towns at once. If we had 3 reappraisals at once, then we'd be looking at overtime issue.
How are reappraisals handled in the interlocal? Is it just the town pays the excess hours?
The town would pay separate, so Justin's contract is for basic lister services.
Yeah.
Reappraisal services are not included in the interlocal contract, so that cost would be strictly on us.
For hours,
Yes.
but like. Hyde
And Hyde
Park-
Park should be
doing-
strictly on Hyde
Hyde
Park.
Park's doing theirs and they'll be paying you directly for the excess hours, or will be billing and paying Justin?
The excess hours will be. So the reappraisal itself for NIMRIC, that's not part of the interlocal agreement, but my work as an assessor to perform those reappraisals for the town is part of the interlocal agreement. So when the Hyde Park's a better example, when Hyde Park starts theirs. I will go from an 8-hour employee to 12, well, their share in the interlocal will go from 8 to 12. So then as a Johnson employee, I go from 30 to 34. And so, yeah,
But those hours, those extra hours will be. On your timesheet will be hit to Hyde Park.
yeah,
Yeah, okay. Just a lot of dots.
In the 5 towns meet, I think that'd be a great point to have everybody on the same page with. You know, the reappraisal hours, and if there's a week when there's overtime, which might be outside of everyone's control. You know, that's how that's allocated as well.
And I think the current interlocal contract deals with overtime, and I think we'd have to revisit that, but I think it. Would address it if the need for the overtime is caused by
Single.
X town, then that, or pays. I think that's it. So,
we haven't run that situation yet, but
yeah.
We probably should then look at, benefit ratios too.
I was kind of wondering how those would allocate out, but if all the towns are going through it. At the end of the cycle, wouldn't it relatively be a wash?
Not necessarily, because
Yeah.
it works different number of hours for different.
I think the benefit ratio would be as it is now, but the contribution would change, the proration.
Proration would change, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't think we'd have to worry about that too much. My eligibility, I think the only thing that changes is the dental or the vision increases by 5% or something like that if I go up to 32 hours.
Mhm.
But other than that, and then there's the time off, which I don't think we've really addressed yet, so that should be talked about at the next meeting too. But yeah, so when my benefit contribution increases, the other towns will make up for that, or the town that has those increased hours.
Causing the extra hours. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a really good agreement, really fair.
And we have. Do you have a copy of this, Tom?
Even local.
The one with
The one with his.
written in.
Yeah, it's in the packet.
It's in this packet,
Yeah, the email.
okay.
Now, I can leave another copy for you.
Well, I was just, I'm hopefully not gonna lose this, but I might reference it Thursday and go, what was that number?
Yeah. Cool.
Oh.
And
Yeah, your point also is we may need to add some other stuff. Items into the budget.
Oh, can I ask, right now, I think it's still screen sharing, if we could just show my face so people know what I look like?
That's a technical question that's far beyond me.
Talk to the owl.
yeah, I think
Yeah.
you've
Put
been
your
on
face in
all
front
along.
of the panel.
You wanted to.
Just look at the owl and start screaming.
There you go.
Justin Mason assessor.
There you go.
Thank you, Justin. We'll be budgeting that stuff Thursday.
Good. Let's let me know about the assistant assessor, whether you want to increase the budget to reflect her request for compensation, or if we should start advertising again.
Yeah.
So our choices really are re-advertise for somebody that could basically hold the tape measure, or have somebody that has a level for expertise level.
There's advantages both ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll let you know. I think it's a lot for tonight, especially being where we're at time wise.
Yeah.
Are we moving on board? Next item. Town meeting warning articles. And you gave us a draft warning, Tom.
It's got yellow on the front.
Yeah.
Eliminate yellow and red. Huh?
Rosemary, who's the trustee of public money now? Is that you?
I did not see that.
What?
Me.
Okay.
This is the first
So I
time,
have to run against you to get that.
it's the first time I've ever seen it.
The draft,
Yeah.
this, I sent in my email,
Huh?
last
Hey,
week
what?
that I was working.
Nothing.
So did you get a copy? Were you
The
able to
only
get a-
thing that's,
Oh, look at
everything
that
on
email
this
that I
is
sent.
exactly as Rosemary said.
I found the
December,
original,
only new.
Oh, you had the original?
yeah,
The article you got back, yeah.
the 24.
Yeah.
I-
Well, there's the question about removing yellow, so we don't need a plot cemetery agent.
So that was in Duncan's email to the board. About, I think we could probably get away, we could eliminate plot. And
Well,
white,
and the Whiting Hill cemeteries.
both of those can go away because it's now under the purview of the select board. Trustee of public money could probably go away, since it's under the purview of select board. That, I missed those two as in yellow. And then. I'll let grand jury can go away if we, unless you really wanna have a jury trial. And then, the auditor for 321, I think we actually have to keep those. But we might wanna do a shift in order of how we operate town meeting this year, because if we're gonna vote to eliminate the position of auditor. These three would then be. moved.
But these are valid. We need them on the floor. So you're saying that,
So say that the town votes to eliminate the position of auditor. And then so we're gonna elect three people, and then later in the meeting, sorry, you no longer have a job.
yeah, that's it, if that's it, 3 people, you may go for it, exactly.
Well, I think you have to have them on the ballot.
That's I think they have to be, the only way I think we could do it is if you had the order in reverse. They have to be on the ballot, but then the moderator could move past them without, because they were at that point moved. They're in the
Do you
beginning,
remember how what we did with listers? But those were up like they were listed.
Were we down to one Lester?
I
I think we're down to just Rose, weren't we?
Right.
And Rose's turn was up.
don't know.
But I don't think there's any harm in having them appear in the warning, and then
I think they have to appear, it's just the order would dictate if David could pass them or not. If they're ahead of the.
These are
These are
Australian
the
ballot. And they're
oh,
also-
they're on the ballot.
Oh, you're not
They're
voting for, okay.
Everything above annual town meeting is valid. That's why I was saying these are valid and this is the floor.
What's the process of getting, we talked about this a little bit earlier, but the process to get things on the bottom to the top. So to things that are from the floor to Australian ballot, takes a public vote, a floor vote to have questions in Australian ballot.
Yeah, if it's a public question. The town has to have voted to, I gave Mike the the statute. So I was halfway.
I'm glad, yeah,
You have to vote to do public questions, but you can vote to do a specific public question by Australian ballot. And thereafter, that specific question would always have to be voted by Australian ballot.
got it.
But you can't vote on an article. So if you had that on there,
It would be for 2026.
it'd be for 2026. You can't vote in the year that you vote.
If Johnson wants to ban plastic bags, anything related to plastic bags would be Australian ballot. In 2025, you'd vote to make it Australian ballot, but you couldn't, it would still be from the floor in 25.
Yeah.
26.
And in 26, if you had the same question, it would be Australian ballot. And thereafter, it would be Australian ballot until the voters decided they didn't want to do that anymore. If they did.
So,
I'm thinking about a specific question and how this is gonna be such a pain, because any change of wording is that, how do you dictate what is a single question? So, it's like, not for tonight, but it's just like an interesting concept.
we're waiting for the library for approved language for reserve fund article.
They're just gonna review it as a whole. And if since we're meeting Thursday night anyways, it seemed, I just wanted you to know that they might come back and say, hey, this is the language we actually want. It seems appropriate to know that process. And a suggestion to maybe change the order to where there's other reserve funds, to all the reserve funds are together.
I remember last year, after David went to some classes, he had concerns about where the budget was in the morning.
Can't remember what they were.
I think, because we have it early on, I think he wanted it later.
You wanted it at the
And
end?
People
I
stay,
think,
so you get them to stay to the end.
Wait, you wanted the
Yeah.
reserve funds to be before the budget?
I sent in the draft tonight.
did you?
I'll,
Okay.
I'll copy everybody to reply that, say David can review the order and make a suggestion.
I thought. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the library wanted their reserve fund to be based on the line item.
The old one,
Maybe it was,
But
this,
no,
last year we had. The articles for additions. Like for
Oh,
River Arts,
yeah.
I think you wanted that before the budget,
oh. You don't have any petitions, do you?
not yet, but they have until 16.
How many people are signed up select board petitions?
There's been several, but nobody's coming back in yet.
might have a whole,
I thought the library wanted a specific line, but I guess.
well, they'll come back to us after Wednesday. Initially, they wanted there was a lot of confusion. It was all encompassing, it was donations, appropriations, and funds that came to the library to be used for future capital expenses, and they also thought it should be under control of the trustees. After reaching out to VLCT, the change was, which they had not reviewed as a whole board, is to have it be, it's because tax revenue has to be controlled by the select board, that the reserve fund would be controlled by the select board. And then the money to be funded would be unallocated, whether they'll either just choose a line or it'll be the total line of the library, that's for them to decide on Wednesday, and then, but all the donations and any money that comes directly to the library trustees have control over.
So it wouldn't go into this.
So that's why that's been removed.
But if I made a donation to the library. And I didn't specify. Like we had this situation with the Historical Society, we have. On membership form.
Yeah.
There are two lines. One is, do you want your donation to go toward the annual operating budget?
Yeah,
Or do you want it to go to the 501c3, or do you want it to go to the reserve fund?
I think if
So people get to pick.
I think any money that is received outside of tax revenue that goes to the library, the trustees have the control over. I think the difference is whether it's money raised in taxes, which the select board has control over the tax rate and the process for collecting funds. Whereas any money that's donations, this library trustees have control of any money that comes to the library, whether it's, lack of a better word. The trustees have full control over, and it's as the endowment, et cetera, et cetera.
So are they gonna have like their own reserve fund?
They already have their own fund. And just the select board can't say, hey, we're gonna use that to lower taxes. They can use it to do what they want with it. We don't have any control over it.
That shouldn't even flow through the town at all.
It doesn't, yeah.
I think that was the issue we had before, which it was.
I think they have a question that they don't know the answer to is, they follow the purchasing policy and like, is that fund that is in control of the trustees also required to follow purchasing policy? My advice is yes, it should, and the select board should, and they always have, and they actually responded to say that they're not gonna do anything without telling the select board anyways. So it feels kind of moot who's in control.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is they have some funds that are, quote, their own funds, and they have some funds that are tax appropriated, but once we appropriate the money and give it to them, it's under their control.
I had a different interpretation that once you appropriate the money for the purposes within the budget, I think you're still in control of that. I think it's only money that comes out of them to them outside of tax generated money. So if you had like a town appropriation of like total 120,000. That might be different, kind of like when you give it to 1,500 to River Arts has full control over it. But since they're within the budget, I think you have control of that money within the budget. I know it's that new whatever, S420 that just came out last July, but
That wording might change by Thursday,
absolutely.
pretty much.
But it's, I think for tonight, placeholder and basic concept.
Okay.
So did we decide anything on whether or not we're gonna take out, we should probably have Rosemary double check this, but when I did the research last year, the grand juror is an appointed rather than an elected official. So we got a grand juror from the ballot.
I thought we were all-
position.
But we're all copacetic with removing everything there. That could be,
So,
Okay, I guess.
Everything in yellow,
yeah,
Yeah,
plus fighting no.
well, except the,
Trustee of public.
Except-
Works.
yeah.
except the audit.
correct, that was decided, yes.
Yes.
Rosemary, what are your thoughts on Article 8 and 9? Child voters authorize the select board to appoint a town clerk as provided in law. Child voters authorize the select board to appoint a town treasurer as provided in law.
If we're gonna do 9, you might as well do 8. And to me, the treasurer, once you hire somebody, you know if they're qualified for that position. Because if they're elected, they may not be qualified.
Absolutely right.
Reasoning clerk should be appointed as well. How's the rest of the board feel?
I agree.
You folks have a copy of this, do you have any extra copies? I guess it's up there.
Make the changes in real time.
We used to have public copies available. Extra 10 or so.
That's something you want.
That costs money.
Well, we got a ton of paper here that's been wasted, we can have 10 more pieces.
Can you
for
guys
people
see
to
the
publish.
board okay?
No, you're gonna go through
We
it,
could,
each
we
one?
could.
It isn't the paper that costs.
We're already on 10.
I'm fine.
10, I think was your question, though, right? Shall the voters authorize the elimination of the office of town auditor?
Yeah, based on what Rosemary saying
Yeah.
earlier in the day, that you aren't gonna have any.
Once Sue Carney gets done,
And still be.
her term is up in March. She said she's told me she's not running. I don't have anybody.
There hasn't been much interest.
Oh, you gotta, sleep there, protect yourself.
It's the projected, that's.
Yeah,
You can come.
You guys can't see it now.
How many are, John, how many are there?
14.
14.
Oh.
11,
maybe 15.
does the select board still want to do this? Shall the town establish a reserve fund to be called for road? Reserve fund to be used for maintenance funds for roads. They would recommend that we,
That's worse than it was.
I'm actually listening to that.
I would recommend on number 11 that we add some verbiage similar to our other reserve fund. Last year, because right now it's being funded by unspent funds, and I don't foresee a near future reason to need like surplus in it, but I just don't want to tie a future board's hands.
So, you only need to state how you fund it the first time. Every time after that is the select board's decision as of the end of the fiscal year. So just because you create an article that says all you're doing is creating a reserve fund, and then you're creating a funding mechanism for that first time, where is that money coming from? Because it's not in that present budget, which is why you have to explain where the money's coming from.
Yes.
Because they haven't voted on the budget for which they created the reserve fund.
We were operating under the wrong premise for a long time, I guess,
Might.
right?
Yeah, I guess I've always been under the
So
impression that-
shall the town insert funding mechanisms such as raise appropriate sum of X or deposit X from the general fund surplus to fund the reserve fund. And so it's, the select board has control of the budget. People vote on the total end dollar, but what happens with those dollars throughout the year is ultimately under the select board's control. The budget is just a best suggestion. And so at the end of the year or throughout the year, you can fund any reserve fund you want. And because actually you have control of that total 3.5 million. And so it's really just, but when you create a reserve fund, you need to fill it. And if you're going to fill it in that first year, voters haven't voted on the budget for which you're filling it yet. And so that's why, and if you're doing it with unexpended funds, state law says any unexpended funds that aren't allocated by the select board immediately go to reduce taxes in the next year. But this is how you get around that because you're providing it in that funding mechanism to vote on. And if they turn that part down, well, then it goes to reduce taxes in the next year. So that's why you have to say how you're gonna fund it, because you're doing something with money that nobody's approved.
But in a future year,
And in the future year, you guys are in control of the 3.5 million to do what you say. You know, it's up to you.
Do you agree with that, Rosemary? Why would we put so much work into this before?
You had a different administrator, I guess.
I think you were around last year when we did the paving one. It would have been nice to know.
Well, to me, it's actually pretty clear. It's if you had to say that you're funding it from those two lines, the paving maintenance fund and the capital paving, because that's what we use the unexpended funds from.
Yeah, and then we said, or
A budget.
unexpended surplus,
Which we-
or,
Exactly.
or an appropriation in here or something. That was all I was saying to add to verbiage was literally go to the one that was written last year. Copy paste, but If we don't have to, we don't have to.
Yeah, I guess I was the other administrator.
Alright,
Yeah, but it's,
Way to
it's,
go.
it's always been my understanding and maybe thought that, you know, this.
logic could.
I've been an administrator for 10 or 12 years, so maybe thought maybe that a lot of things have changed.
I was
So maybe
applying
the
for it,
thinking
sorry.
on it has changed. But, you know, workshops that I attended 20 years ago said, when you establish a reserve fund, you have to specify where it's gonna come from, and that carries through from year to year. But if it doesn't carry through from year to year,
Yeah, I thought it was clear. I'm not married to it.
We could do it by adding the line, if that. Let's do that, and then it solves, and then there's no question, and then it does solve. If that's, and then we can put this to bed and move on.
yeah, at some point, we're gonna have to explain this to people like Walter Pomeroy, because Walter is gonna say, you can't, you can't spend it. If it wasn't a dedicated line item, you can't spend it. Right?
Well, we can
We've
just-
heard that from him before.
We can tell them under advisement, we can.
Well, last year.
He'll look up the statute and throw it back in your face,
But the statute's not all that clear. I think what becomes. I guess at some point, I recommended last year to get a legal opinion. And base our decision on legal opinion, but that didn't happen.
Do you want it, what language do you want to add, and I'll just type it in. I don't have last year's warning in front of me, but if you read it, I can type it. And then we're done, then we don't have to explain it to Pomeroy, we don't have to. And we establish the reserve fund, we meet statute, and you still can put any money you want in it in the future years.
right? I don't wanna bog things down, it's on last year. It's just. Unexpended amount, blah, 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 or year-end surplus. The next one's tricky. Nothing else that'll pose some questions, I'm open to suggestions, we can scrub that whole one if you guys want.
Well,
Yeah,
what's so tricky about that?
Well, because people are gonna pick it apart. They're gonna say, well, I like the idea of this and not this, and I wanna make, we voted on 180 acres before. I think there'll be people that.
yeah, I could see some confusion here. We asked for $60,000 for a merger plan last year, and it was a large deal. I don't think everybody understood the
I mean, I'm happy
future
to
implications
stand up.
potentially.
I know, I'd be happy to stand up and explain the need for it, and to say that it was agreed upon at a joint meeting. And if people are concerned about the 180 acres, we could say it's, we share that with the village, and we share the lower storage shed but that's on the 180 acres, and whatever the future of that land is, it should be separate from the town use, as well as their storage,
Yeah,
All they're doing is advising the select board
correct.
to investigate and pursue.
When we get into naming structures, like the structures aren't all really listed there, but I guess it's a moot point. It's just.
I think one of the reasons for including it is that. We could spend a lot of time and energy. Meeting with the trustees and coming up with a plan, and then bring it to the voters, and the voters would say, what'd you do that for? And they still could say that,
Oh, yeah.
even if we do this, but at least
Right.
this. Puts it out there and gets them thinking that, or
I think
understanding that we're talking.
if you flush this out, not here, but at town meeting and say this, we've met with the village.
we did
The village has a similar warning, I assume.
they will at the end of February. And I think just say like, hey, look, we had a sinkhole and, you know, we came together, but in the future, we wouldn't have to come together. And they're building a new garage with, you know, congressionally dedicated spending. Should the town really be on that grant or not? No, it's a village garage. I think you can talk about a lot of these subtleties and just put
Well,
it,
we've been talking about painting the mailhouse for 25 years.
that's right,
And we haven't done it,
you know, and it's,
because we can't get together.
Yeah, that's,
you know, and I think. Just making it about clarity and boundaries, I think, yeah,
well, this would be great for the proponents of merger too. If this stuff is all subdivided and it would just make it that much easier to do,
easier to separate.
To merge. or
Well,
to
you know,
separate?
we don't,
separated.
we already are separated. We only, we're two separate towns.
No, but these, you know, this would be all part of the merger thing. To work out all of this stuff, if this was done ahead of time, merge would be easier.
You know, I think I disagree. I think this should have never. You were the kingpin for like the success of the town village operation. Where when we had an organization that had a shared employee that made big decisions and it mediated two boards with a shared interest. Once Duncan retired, that was when things became unclear, because now you have two boards, you have an administrator and a manager with separate interests. And I think when you don't have that shared person to bring the parties to the table, it causes, now we have friction, where before we had somebody to come together and break bread, and now we're throwing the bread at each other. Yeah.
Well, anyways, I'm in favor of leaving it the way it is. Put it in. It's just an advisory. We can tell them what's been going on. I mean,
They might throw
maybe we could make it simpler. And just not put the actual names of the property. But I don't care.
I like the advice to investigate. It's just,
You know,
it's nothing.
Just-
Well, it's investigate and pursue,
And pursue.
yeah.
It just means we're gonna spend town resources on this.
do you think that you need the last sentence though, Margo? Properties included, blah, 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 blah.
I think if you don't have it, a lot of people, that's what people are gonna be asking about. So I think it's,
What they are.
I'd keep it.
Are there any?
Well, what
What are they
about
gonna be
the
asking about?
smokehouse? Yeah.
If you didn't include those properties, like what you're talking about, like what
Well, what about
properties?
the smokehouse? Yeah, and that.
Yeah, either way, it's gonna.
You want to put that?
No, I'm just throwing out that they're not all listed as a heads up.
You know, there's gonna be 1,000 questions we can plan for, and there's gonna be 1,000,000 more that we can't. But I think, you know, if it's easy now to put two to bed, if you had them, it was a reasonable
The
problem.
board has said they're fine with it, they're fine with it.
I'm fine, well, I agree, people are gonna start asking about, what about the municipal office building, that's a joint building.
And
How
that's why
about if
this
we
is
put
clear.
wording in such as,
That's why I said off Railroad Street, so it's specific to the location. And tried to. Some ambiguity, but also,
how about included but not limited to? These parcels. And that would allow us to at least have this, the way it's worded right now, we couldn't even.
Talk about the municipal office building.
Yeah, right.
so
So
then
if we,
should what if I take away on Railroad Street? And then even talk about the municipal, and put the municipal building in the list?
yeah, or if you do use the words included but not limited to, then. I mean, there may be things we're not even thinking about tonight.
Yeah, take on Railroad Street off,
Oh,
put the properties to be discussed. And add Duncan's verbiage, included but not limited to. Mill house, village garage, town garage. And. Maybe municipal building, you never know, they may come back with. Between town meeting and July, this needs to become a sewage treatment.
well, if this becomes a village sewage treatment plant, then we're gonna be discussing it, right?
Well, I wouldn't be in favor, I mean, unless we had another place to go to.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot there's so much that we don't know.
Do you have that verbiage?
So I just changed it to, shall the voters of the town of Johnson advise the select board to investigate and pursue subdividing jointly owned properties with the village of Johnson on railroads on,
No.
no, hold on. Within the, and the villages. Pursue subdividing jointly owned properties with the village of Johnson. The properties to be included but not limited to within the investigated subdivisions are to be the Mill House, Village Garage, Town Garage, Solar Storage Building, 180 acres off of one-way lane behind the garages. I don't particularly like that second sentence.
We can do this. We can do it.
I think that the intent or the hope would be that if we,
You could do it under other business, but,
You can do it. You know.
but it's,
I think
we don't, but
Right.
I personally don't wanna spend a whole lot of time talking with the trustees and coming up with a plan and then going to town meeting. And having people stand up and say, well, would you do that?
You're gonna, that's gonna happen anyway.
probably,
This.
only if you show up.
I can guarantee there'll be people that stand up and say, we didn't ask you to do that, why'd you do that?
It's,
To tell you the truth, I don't think it's gonna go very far anyway. I think it's gonna be tough negotiating on both sides. And so,
They wanna give us the mill house, that's not.
but they don't wanna give us the 90 acres. Let's be paid dearly for it.
right,
I think for just the reason Duncan mentioned, it's worth having it at the meeting.
Discussion.
It would
It's
certainly stimulate discussion.
Well, I think our
And it's a heads
13
up.
may very well too.
Uh,
13 will stimulate discussion.
Would be the highest turnout for town meeting.
are we on the 13th?
That's what-
So just a question, voters say no, or you're not gonna have this discussion?
With the village?
Yeah.
I think it'd be a pretty clear indication,
I think the only time it would happen
you'd
is
be
if
wasting your
before,
time.
right, the relocation of the sewage treatment plant, and it was forced, I think that would probably be the only time.
But they couldn't actually force us out.
Right.
And people said specifically that we don't want the municipal building to leave. I'd be pretty hard pressed to say, yeah, let's sell it.
And, I think my opinion would be if there was a good discussion about those buildings, whether they should or shouldn't be, separated out between town and village, and the majority of the town voters said leave it the way it is, I'd be inclined to leave it the way it was.
Even knowing that there'll be headaches.
That's the risk you're running by asking.
Yeah.
I have a question about the order of the articles. And since we haven't finished the articles, maybe it's premature. But I'm seeing a whole bunch of things that I think are critical to have the input of as many people as possible. And 12, 13. Some others, coming late in the meeting. If we break for lunch, we're losing people. And so I don't know if it's possible to put those items that are gonna be of great interest further up in the meeting, and maybe some of the less critical after lunch.
I don't see a lot of movement though, because are we gonna, I would say, town clerk and town treasurer, that's all. Those are important, that's a big change of who we are.
They're 5 people.
They're buying in. I I think we're stuck with what we have. Article 1 is pretty much what we're having.
One of the big problems with town meeting is that. And I've noticed it over the years that you can get into good discussions on something, and then all of a sudden. The legislators show up. Okay, and then all of a sudden, when they show up, everything stops. And we gotta listen to them run their mouths for an hour. Okay, and really, it screws everything up. It really does.
Let's ask them not to come.
They don't need to come, as far as I'm concerned. Really, if you have a question, you can call them, but it aggravates me to no end. When they show up and expect us to stop right on the spot.
If they're not town residents, one town resident can object to their speaking and they can speak.
Well, I tell you what. We can either ask them. Not to show up, or I'll stand up and say, hey, I don't wanna hear you run your mouth.
Invite them
That's
to
a-
lunch.
Even time limit.
That's a funny point, we could get into the timing of them. We need another article, I think last year Dave had to say something about Tom presenting.
It's just a question to the floor. Is there any objections to Tom?
Yep.
Yeah.
And Dan.
But Peter, to answer your question, you know, that, I don't think, you know, if 13 stays, in the warning. There's gonna be a lot of people that show up.
They'll
No
stay
matter
for
what.
that.
They'll stay for that, and other people will show up. There'll be people on both sides of the aisle that will show up specifically for Article 13.
I think, going back to your thing about the representatives, I think we ought to let them speak this year. We're talking about $50,000 getting slashed out of our budget. From pilot, it might be a good year to have some people that are responsible for that in front of us.
But by the time this crossover take place,
Right before town.
right before town meeting,
So they ought to be able to tell us what's going on.
but they won't actually be able to. If crossover has already taken place, they won't be able to influence.
But Westman will.
Yeah, because there's an appropriation.
It'll move out of the House to the Senate. And it'll be an appropriation, so. I'm just telling you that, you know. Again, if they wanna speak, they're the hand that feeds us, we might.
I'm not-
Remember that.
I'm not opposed to him presenting, but if there was. A request from the board to see if they could show up around
Lunchtime.
2, yeah.
Lunchtime
1
would
p.m.
be ideal.
Yeah.
Show up at lunch.
They can talk during.
We could request
Are we
it.
even having lunch this year?
Kind of feeding in the barn.
Who's doing the lunch? The 6th graders aren't doing?
They didn't do it last year.
I did it.
Mark did it last.
Martin,
I think it's awesome. I love that, actually.
Town meeting lunch is me.
Can we talk about Article 13?
Gotta get my cousin.
Mr. Chairman, we're gonna.
13, Article 13.
Article number 13. What would you like to
Keep it
talk
waiting.
about, Margot?
Well, I've been reading the minutes from previous meetings prior to this one. And I'm just curious as to like why the select board put this. Be the one for it to be at the meeting. An article.
Thrown out there as an idea to get some. Feedback from the voters at town meeting, which is what the most iconic. Reference. Typically.
It is advisory.
It's advisory,
It's advisory, yeah.
The last time anything was done was March 2nd, 2021, it just said, shall the select board repeal the ordinance regulating all-terrain vehicles? That was it.
Right, but
the-
that one was hand fed, wasn't it? You didn't have to get petitions, the select board rewrote it. And,
Well,
Did that one get voted on by Australian ballot
Yes.
because of?
yeah, that was voted on by us.
Because of COVID.
There was no town meeting.
yeah,
But just being a part of the discussions, you know, over the past couple of years, and then knowing that there've been a lot of letter writing, a lot of discussion and. I'm just curious as to, and so we're at this place where, and Paul wrote a letter, and it just kind of this place of like, yeah, let's really consider this, and then now it's. It just seems to have some energy, just giving energy back to a conversation that. I guess I don't. In the meetings, I guess the ATV club, and that's not even Johnson base, was asked, like, let's ask them what they want. And I'm, you know, I'm just kind of question that because the citizens of Johnson have spoken, not all, you know, certainly, but many, and everybody's been invited throughout, you know, this time. And so I guess I'm curious if I'm reading the minutes correctly. Why, you know, you felt that the ATV club, like, what would they prefer? In terms of our roads and our community?
I don't get what your question is, Mark.
I'm curious as to what, like, I was surprised that this was going to be put on as an article. And then I just have, and I was gonna say more, you know, but it is really late and I'm not like certainly not at my best this time. But I just have like two things. It's more of like for a town to think about, because more, you know, we've talked about this. And you said it really is about the roads. The select board is like, it's about managing the roads and taking care of the roads. It's not about somebody else's recreation. So I'm still a little bit confused by that, but there's two things I just want to put out there in terms of our roads, in terms of like liability and our responsibility. So from the American Academy of Pediatrics, right? So they have so many countless articles in terms of the safety and the dangers. And I was going to talk a lot more about it, so it's really great that it's late. I'm just going to quote this, that the American Academy of Pediatrics calls on pediatricians and other stakeholders to advocate for legislative efforts that promote ATV safety and to support efforts for repeal laws and ordinances that encourage unsafe riding behaviors, such as the recreational use of ATVs on public roadways. And so it really does, really before this, can point to the number of injuries and deaths, particularly with, you know, humans under the age of 16. So here you have like a very well-regarded, you know, Academy of Pediatrics saying, we're counting on our legislators, we're counting on the decision makers to repeal laws and ordinances that encourage unsafe behavior such as ATV use on our roads. And then the other is from the Consumer Federation of America, and they report, you know, like Polaris and Honda, a lot of the video makers, but basically, I'll just do one little part. ATVs are not designed for on-road use, as manufacturers and advocates make clear. And this study reinforces that ATVs on roads are dangerous, no matter the surface type. So you're getting this from agencies and from medical professions, counting on really asking, again, people who are making the laws, supporting the ordinances, to just think about our roads, think about our safety. And, you know, and I think that, and again, reading the minutes, I think that Duncan, you were advocating, for not roads, but like to find out that there can be a trail system through somewhere in the town. So I guess when we put something like this as an article and we're in the gym and we have a part of our population voting on something that's so important, I think without the benefit of maybe, well, there has been the benefit of like, again, these meetings to come and express our concerns and to listen to others and but so I guess that's a concern, something that is obviously so big. We've all spent a lot of time on this and I do appreciate it, but to bring it to a town meeting absent, I think maybe a lot of education, information. It's my concern.
So what I'm gathering from you is you would rather this not be a warning.
Yeah, I think
Okay, that's.
that's it. I mean,
Yeah.
so right now with the current ordinance, right, is class 3, class 4 roads, right?
Unpaid class.
Unpaved. Unpaved.
Well, this would answer the question once and for all, what the people of Johnson do. There's all kinds of communities in Vermont that have similar things just like this. I mean, Bakersfield, for instance, has it.
Right, they What they do is you pay for a permit, you pay yourself. You have $10.
There we go, revenue up,
And I-
$100.
And I can tell you Fairfield, has never voted to have an ordinance at all. Therefore, no ATVs are allowed technically on roads. But there's more damn ATVs on roads in Fairfield than anywhere else that I know of. They're everywhere.
You know,
I've got a slightly different view on it, not contrary, but my concern with seeing that on there is that. You know, we put a lot of time and investment into this reimagine Johnson. You've got 5 different task force with people in town, putting a lot of time and effort into those. Reimagining Johnson, what does Johnson look like? You pulling out one. Very slim. But very controversial issue, it changes really what Johnson looks like, how you reimagine. And it seems like it's sort of out of context with all that other efforts going on.
well,
It is,
Part of recreation, isn't
Yeah.
it is part of recreation, and I had actually talked with Marco, remember at the first Reimagine Johnson event? We had both said it. We had kind of brainstormed with each other, because it wasn't a cross section of the town,
Maybe,
and we were hoping to somehow some way to make it a greater cross section. This is, like you said, a controversial topic, and it just puts it back to the voters from where I sit. And gets advisement from them on where they wanna go. I guarantee you. I can't guarantee it,
We just did.
whatever the vote up or down, it'll probably be appealed at some point. Right?
And it's also important to note that it's not actually part of the warning yet. That's what we're
well, that's.
talking about.
Yeah, we're discussing. it.
That's. Yeah, and
And
that's it.
I hear you,
Yeah.
on protecting the public, I do. We approve liquor licenses every time they come in, as well as cannabis licenses, and we all know that those. Not wonderful habits to have as well, so
And those.
I guess there's like a balance act that's difficult. If we didn't sell liquor in Johnson, would there be less DUIs? I would hope so.
Yeah, sure. But you know, you could go, like, I'm just saying, not, could be anybody, any of us, go get a 6-pack or whatever, go home. Drink it, watch a game, recreate, and it's not impacting. Those around me, right? Even if it's moderate, it's safe, it's quiet, it's private, and I think. And it's a late night, but you can go back through all the minutes and like all the letters, just about. So we did, because I didn't mention the things that had already been brought up, right, like the 2-mile impacted noise and the just disruption. So as for someone like, I don't know, like for Mike, I'm just picking at you, because like where you live, you won't be impacted, I think, you know, one way or the other in terms of that type of strong impact than a lot of ridership.
But I'm gonna tell you, Margot, I can sit on my porch and either a loud vehicle or a pile of Harleys. I mean, on a good day, I think I can hear them from the Union School all the way down to the bottom of Gulf Hill. Okay, so is that spoiling my peace and quiet? I guess you could say yes, but it's their right to be on the road. If they wanna have 10 Harleys start and drive from here to Canada, it's their prerogative, you know? My next door neighbor had that, dirt bike trail. You remember years ago that there was a big to-do about that and all kinds of complaints about it and the noise? You know, my property abutted all of his, and then NATO picked the rest of it up. I didn't have a complaint, and NATO didn't have a complaint. And it's like my wife said, those are boys staying out of trouble. I could hear them, it was just like bees. But I mean, that was their business. It was their property, you know?
Well, I'm sorry to take us down a number of rabbit holes, but I think Paul really put it in context of
Well, the other
a
thing,
larger town.
let me jump in. The difference, Mike, is that it was their property. We're talking about public roads. If you bought a house somewhere near a road, and now all of a sudden, when there was no ATV use, now all of a sudden you're saying, yeah, open them up. Let's have
250 riders come by every Saturday. That's a big difference. Property values. It's huge. difference.
I can't jump on that. Peter has a question.
It's an insignificant question, except that I don't know where it came from. Did this come up after I left the last meeting?
Yeah, when we were talking about other items. And it was broached as a potential.
I brought it up.
What'd you have, Mark?
What I find interesting about this is, how do we interpret this if it goes down in flames?
And again, Mark, contrary, how do we interpret it if it appears to answer the question once and for
Have
all? as Mike
overwhelming
says, which
support.
I don't for a minute believe it's gonna answer the question. Once and for all.
But if it's defeated, does that mean we shouldn't allow them anywhere?
No. This is,
Yes.
this
We'll add that clause.
this looks into it. It
We
says-
wanna make it clear, Mark. Let's say on all roads or no roads, and then we've gotta put it to bed then.
Throw another article out there.
You know what I mean?
Throw it,
Then we can get some people.
Or leave it as it is right now.
Yeah, all roads and no roads, and leave it as
Shut
this.
it down.
How do you put that into a vote?
you have to have like another article.
I'm saying we don't.
B or C,
We get some people to turn,
stand up and do it.
then we can ban deer hunting.
There is a beauty of democracy.
Get some people.
You could go with, you could go article, call that article 14.
We could scrub it too. It was an idea to give the voters.
Well, I appreciate you listening to my
Actual.
concern.
I do have to come back to the property value thing. That is subjective. I hear it and I understand it. But I've asked multiple realtors, our assessors in other towns. Does this affect your property value? In the negative? Or the positive? Does it affect it at all? And they say, depends on the person. Certain group of people might increase your house's value 50,000. Certain group of people might decrease. So it's really market driven. And I tried to do some market analysis of my own. Of towns that didn't have ATVs and then passed ordinances and. Their grand list didn't grow or shrink by any significant measurable amount. Their property values didn't increase or shrink by any significant amount. You could definitely say COVID affected property values. For sure, like that's market provable, it's not
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's
subjective.
necessarily measurable market value, but it's certainly for some people would impact their property.
Right. I always end up playing devil's advocate, because the person sitting next to you could say, yeah, it increases.
I'm not,
And they're being subjective and you're being subjective.
what do other board members think about just pulling this?
We can scrub it.
I'd like to pull
Let's let Peter be the deciding factor.
No, I want to answer Mark's question.
Wait,
So-
my question is, do you wanna just pull this off the warrant? That's my question.
I want to go back to your other one before that.
Okay.
About, so in other words. And you talked about it too, that if they voted yes or no, what would happen? Shall the voters of the town of Johnson advise the select board to amend the ATV ordinance to allow ATVs on 2 and 3 and 4 roads within the town of Johnson? If they say no, then the ordinance stands the way it is.
It's a very easy conversation anytime somebody wants to amend it.
It stays the way it is. So if they say no, it's
But
no.
if you have any belief
No, I don't. I
that
don't.
we're
And
not going to be facing this issue time and every year, every year or every other year, we're gonna be dealing with this, no matter what we do. If we allow them, we're gonna have a group of people coming in and say, oh, what you guys do for? We need to, we need to amend the ordinance to do this or that or the other thing. I mean, this isn't gonna go.
And if we don't allow them, we'll have another.
But the ordinance has been around since 2006, right? 2007? And it hasn't been work every year or conversations every year. I think it's went for a long time being like, this is cool. We've got class 3 and class 4 roads up in Johnson.
Well,
I wouldn't say that there
I'm gonna
were
make a motion.
complaints
Yeah.
about it, but Yeah, I think one of the driving factors was COVID, actually. Because so many people started using ATVs recreationally
Getting out.
and getting out. And, you know, there was ATVs everywhere.
Yeah.
You don't see half as many of them now.
You were given money by the government and given time and being told, get outside and stay away from people and.
Yeah, go outside and exercise.
From the town. So I'm gonna make a motion to remove this article from the town warning.
I don't know, if we need a motion, but sure. Is there a second?
Well, yeah, I don't know either, but.
Just poll the board.
That's what I was doing. I think we don't.
I would second the motion, so I would be, I just think there are better ways to go about doing it than that.
Peter, how do you feel?
I recognize that ATVs are recreation for folks. And I'm not gonna go out and suggest that we should ban them from the face of the earth. And even though I'd like to take a walk in the woods without the noise. But I can't support opening up every road in town to ATVs.
But the question is, shall we remove this?
That's why I would be in favor of removing it.
Okay.
I mean, you know. Or I could just vote no at the annual meeting, you know.
I could just vote no.
Well, but right now you're being asked about, do we put this on the ballot or not?
So we're deciding for all the people of the town right here.
Whether it goes on the ballot.
Yeah, well, so the deal is, let the people decide in the community what
Well,
they want.
if somebody wants to put together a petition to get that article on the way, I'd be, well, I wouldn't have any choice. As long as it was a legal
I think this is just
petition.
really poorly written. Well,
It's really poorly. Was that the way I had it written?
I don't know, to say add ATV article, and I thought it was to open up all the roads in Johnson.
and I asked you, Michael, if
Yeah,
that,
I wish it was in my, I forgot my stupid. I got it in my
Here
phone.
somewhere.
yeah, I asked you whether the ATV people even wanted this, and you said I'll check in.
Well, no, I talked to some of them, they said, go for it.
Okay. After the last meeting.
But I didn't do a lot.
So
You know, I didn't do a lot of,
Yes,
chit chatting about it. They just said, go for it.
Right. Peter, yes or no? Keep the article or scrub it for this year?
Scrub it.
I guess you got the majority of the board.
Yeah, Michael, tell them to go get a petition.
My note said all roads.
You know, they didn't get a
We don't have
petition the
a
last
majority
time
of
for the
class.
article.
Well, I tell you.
I think the town meeting before that, it came up under other business. And there was support.
No, that article that got voted on in 2021, that was a petition.
No,
You sure?
There were two articles, there were two. different
there was
articles.
two when it was brought to the board re-verbiaged them. Because you didn't need a petition in to get articles, you just had to come to the select board and say.
But there were
You
two
didn't like the way it
articles.
was written. Take it.
Originally there was, yeah.
I just
Thought we voted on two different.
That's why they ran there.
What year is?
So what if it
2021.
what if it fails?
What is that? You say it says. Keep it the way it is. I say if it fails, it means.
Repeal the ordinance. Or
I disagree.
undertake
I
comprehensive
mean,
evaluation of the
Means it
impact.
open it up.
I say if it fails. it means-
That's fine. No, it's done.
Alright,
Move on.
Tom, delete. Is that all we have on the warning tonight?
No. Back in 2020, I brought before the board having a budget advisory committee. Now, the board wasn't behind me on this, but we did stick it on the warning. Okay, and so I'm gonna read what was on March 3rd, 2020. Shall the select board appoint and establish rules and procedures of a budget advisory committee of resident taxpayers of the town of Johnson, whose general purpose would be initial review, evaluation, and recommendation to the Johnson Selectboard in parentheses, who retain final budget decisions on budget requests or proposals for such committees, boards, organizations, and entities connected with the town of Johnson's budget as defined by the select board.
That is a mouthful.
So anyway, what they do, and they have one in Cambridge, and they assist the select board, and it's made up of business people, accountants, and people who really know their stuff. Now, not to say that I'm trying to belittle the board, and to try to say you don't know your stuff. But the point is, they assist the board. Now, for the life of me, I do not know why the previous board was against this, tacitly against it, because they didn't really speak to the benefits of it at town meeting, and so it failed. Now, I don't know whether they just didn't want, they thought they were losing control or what the deal is. But I really think it would be a good vehicle for the board, to assist the board in our budget.
Does anybody else want to speak first?
Well, Eli, can you pass that on over?
Does it even need to go to town meeting? Can't we just form a budget advisory committee?
No, there's and I think I brought this to the board at some point, because there is specific statutory language to establish a budget advisory committee, and that budget advisory committee, I think that's one of the reasons it went down, actually, was I have a copy of the actual statute that talks about establishing that committee. And they have, once you establish it, it has a life of its own. It really does get to make those recommendations and bring them to the board. And I think, honestly, I think that's why some of the existing board members didn't want to do it, because they didn't want the hands tied.
Your hands aren't tied.
I agree. I completely agree. But I think there was a perception amongst board members that they would be faced with a budget proposed by a group of individuals, not themselves, that
They lose their little kingdom.
Yeah.
Really,
I honestly think
it's
that's part of the
ridiculous.
reason there was some.
It could be very helpful to us.
Can you get the statute language? Or-
I think I copied that right from Cambridge, actually.
Is it,
If the
and
municipality,
Cambridge doesn't have trouble, I mean, we can't get people to volunteer for anything.
They have a robust one.
They did that. What year was that?
When they did that,
What year did that get put in the?
2020.
2020.
Yeah, and I was working with the family Cambridge at the time to help them get their first town. They might have been. Because they do exactly that, and they hadn't had, they did have pretty good success with, volunteers to, be on that end of the budget.
But it gives the select board the ability to establish it, and if nobody wants to be on it, then so be it.
I'm not arguing against you, Mike.
No, I'm not arguing.
To make recommendations.
To Evan's point, couldn't you create a task force or a volunteer group and not make it committees, so it's not statutory, but looking at the budget, you guys just are clearly not calling up into it. You're asking a lot for a volunteer group to be thoroughly invested enough to give you good advice.
Yeah,
Because what you're doing is.
I hate to tell you, but we're all volunteers too, Paul.
And that's actually for
Maybe
detail.
we should just have the planning commission do it.
Touche.
Yeah, we should probably do a better job.
Oh,
There you go.
yeah, we've been trying.
Such a friendly guy.
I mean, I'm open to the idea. I don't know how much traction it'll have. But it's a question I'm not opposed to. As long as it's worded properly.
Right.
And can we get a copy of the statute that would?
Tom's all right. Got right there.
the municipality creates an advisory budget committee as provided in 17 GSA 2646. The committee shall evaluate the municipality's budget and make recommendations to the select board for the budget based on its findings.
That's a basic, we just need to fill.
This
Yeah,
is-
but this doesn't say we need to have it,
646.
yeah,
That's what you want to see?
we don't wanna see it in the meeting,
That's creating your next.
research it, put it on the article for the next review.
Yeah.
I agree with this.
I wanna know, is this a committee that is, they're taking minutes and is, gonna be zoomed up and online like other committees?
What specifically is the ask? So you want me to research how to form a committee? You want me to research
I
the
assume it
responsibilities of the
has to
committee?
be
Are they subject to open meeting?
open meeting laws and all
Well,
that
that would
stuff.
go without saying.
I would hope so. And
And I
therefore,
can tell you that section of statute was created long before open meeting law
yeah,
existed.
I'm sure it was.
So,
And
and
so
are
we
they,
have Donna would be taking notes.
they're advisory, so they don't have to be,
Yeah,
Or-
advisory, right, it's not decision making.
Yeah,
That's
and,
a little bit.
but it's definitely has to be an open meeting.
We have other advisory committees that we pay for minute takers on, I think even one that we.
You wanna make that property tax? Cause all of us, everybody pays taxes, it's more, now we pay sales tax. And for some of us, pay income tax. But almost everybody pays sales tax. So those are the taxpayers. And this is what you've got to do.
Alright, we're getting into the weeds of the wording, we're talking about the idea. Take the board.
Thank you, Ward, for listening to it.
Do you want this for Thursday's meeting? Or do you want this at, are we gonna do a warning on the meeting?
We want to finalize.
We're coming down on time real quick, aren't we, Rosemary? We have to sign this thing by when?
Oh. Third week.
And do we have the language on the budget?
Thank you, Paul.
Thanks, Paul, you guys put it.
Thank you. Thanks, Mario.
We have until the 16th to get petitions in.
Until the 16th. So would that be?
So we have to sign this thing in 10 days.
Kind of deadline.
I can send those out.
I think the 24th is Susan. then
We
I'll-
can't.
We have to be at the printer on the 27th.
Hey,
I don't tell them. No, I didn't tell them that.
You.
Well, we can't,
Fridays before.
we can't do it any earlier than the 60th.
No.
right?
No, so somebody could do any petition.
Right.
Alright, so Thursday. We only have 10 days, as soon as possible.
But Thursday is what? Nine?
Yeah,
But we can't actually sign it until after the.
we're not signing it. Tom was asking whether he should have the wording for Mike's article ready to review.
And maybe, because at Article 5, we've got question marks in there, right, and because we don't know what the final budget's gonna be.
Right.
To be raised by.
Yeah.
Estimated.
And it should say estimated, non-revenue, right?
Yes,
Just another
it's,
estimate.
it says currently shall authorize total expenditures for operating expenses of blank, of which an estimated blank shall be raised by taxes and blank by non-tax revenues.
Yeah,
So, almost 17, ESA 2646 says, it just means, it just says that you have to pick 5 members. By ballot. That's
By
all.
ballot?
That's it, that's all it says.
Of that, a committee of that nature.
Yeah, that, all that statute that it's referring to, it says that in order to form it, you have to form it by ballot, 5 members at a time at town meeting.
What does by ballot mean?
Unless the town votes to have the members appointed by the select board. It's just like a select board member. A town clerk or treasurers.
Well, Michael, do you want this to be an appointed committee or an elected committee? This is what he's drilling down on right now.
Appointed.
a lot quicker.
So then we would have to do an article.
I think we're getting into the weeds, you have the will of the board, right?
Yeah, it's gonna be appointed, we're not gonna have a special.
So we're just gonna, so really all the article is to have the voters. Vote to have the select board appoint a budget committee. 5 members.
Basically. You're not getting ready to go.
Yeah, I'm all set.
We're not done yet.
We're done. This is our last.
No, we're not.
Man.
We got the industrial
We got
I'm
HVAC stuff.
done.
What?
I got HVAC to take care
We got the industrial park, HVAC and employee organization,
We moved
as well as highway mileage
Okay.
certificate.
I'm not gonna make it, folks. For the rest of
I get
it, I gotta.
of. I know how those feel, it's feel,
Anything on the industrial park, Tom?
Down my arm.
you feel like you're gonna pass out,
Yeah, pretty much.
don't pass out.
Tom said,
Going down the stairs.
Tom said nothing on the industrial park.
Okay, good.
All right,
Maybe Paul
RFP,
and Charles could get you down the stairs.
I'll be fine.
RFP
For
for,
sure?
are you guys
The
done?
elevator.
I'm sure he's all right.
I'm,
Okay.
I'm good.
Okay.
Do you need that?
RFP review for HVAC, can we push this?
I think I can push it.
Okay,
There was, the only question I have is one person came back and. He did not do a site visit, but I sent him pictures direct. And he thinks that. It probably can be repaired and it. Suggested not replacing equipment, everyone else suggested replacing equipment. But he did not respond to the RFP, is the board okay if I have him come and give a price to repair it as a. And
He was the guy in the email that he didn't have time to make it here.
correct.
So that's the one we need to look into, because
This-
he looks like he's reasonable.
And I just didn't want to, he didn't respond to the RFP, so I want the board to make formal. Yes, that's okay.
That's fine with me.
So in order to do that, we probably have to reject
we would have to reject all
the
the,
RFP.
Or, I don't think we have to, because what if he comes back and says, oh, we have to replace it? If we're not gonna make a decision, if he says, hey, look, I can repair it for this. Then we can reject the RFP, but if he says, oh, actually, this is 25 years old, I can't get parts. We need to hold this, then you could say, hey, we're looking at it, but he didn't get a bid in on time.
We don't have to reject the other two. I think we can just go with this
no,
guy,
it's denied.
see what he has to say.
Okay, nothing for old business. Does the board wanna approve the highway mileage certificate?
Is there any
As
reason we would?
presented? Tom and Jason are in support. I didn't see the map, but the mileage didn't change.
Nothing changed, so.
What's the board's wishes?
Yes, I vote that we approve it.
All right,
Me too.
there's a motion and a second, further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Yeah, I just have it. Duncan, can you sign this before you leave or no?
Or when you decide.
Highway mileage certificate.
Yeah, the only question I was gonna ask on that is, did we verify for sure that Lenway Lane is on that certificate and it's all class 3? Does it should be?
I didn't see the map. Because there was no map. like-
Yeah, there's no map that, they only update the maps, I think if you make changes, right?
Right, but that's a change that we had made. the other
Yeah, but
year.
at one point in time, there was a map that was
That's not wrong.
either a map that was or reputed to show.
I just want to get my order.
Part of that is being class 4 and it's not, it's all class 3.
Jason is asleep.
So we wanna, the reason it's important is we need to get the mileage, the full
Yeah,
dollar amount for the mileage on that entire road. No,
I don't think we'll need to look it up during the meeting. Can you sign that, Duncan?
I'll sign it with the caveat that Tom verifies that Lenway Lane is in there as class 3.
Deal. Town employee organization, Tom, take it away.
Okay?
So town employee. It's all class 3. So town employee reorganization is, so we have, right now, we have the town employees are segmented into like 3 sections, right? You have some that are under review of the town clerk, some that are under the purview of the town clerk, some under the purview of the select board directly, and some under the purview of the administrator. And then you have, but you're asking these employees to often interact, and it creates, and sometimes creates resentment, and sometimes creates dysfunction. when you're asking employees to work together, when it's not clearly written in their job description, or there's no clear like understanding of like chain of command. And I think like having a tiered system, which is pretty standard, like the highway department has a tiered system, right? Employees go to Jason, Jason goes to me, I go to the select board. And it doesn't matter like how that works, but there should be some tier all the way up, rather than having 3 top tiers. The 2 top tiers, there should be this one person, so, and I think this. I can go over those examples, but I think we're gonna touch on some employee evaluation stuff, where we would be evaluating situations. But I think in order to do this well, it should be done in executive session and then make any changes or decisions in public session.
So you're saying we should go into executive session?
That would be my suggestion. We don't need to do this now, and I would recommend any changes happen with the transition of Rosemary as when she leaves. Town and village employees are gonna get mixed up with this. And I think at that time is when you would reevaluate this tier, but since we're talking about that. We need to budget for that reorganization. Now's the time to think about it, and whether we start thinking about it today or we start thinking about it at a different date. But we should definitely have it on the forefront of our mind, so that way. We want to be a unit, we want to be a team, we do not want dysfunction and segment. We do not want to divide our employees, we want to bring us together. So that when one employee goes to the other and say, hey, can you help me on this? You never want to hear somebody say, it's not part of my job description. Or I don't report to you, or, that has to stop and end. And so the way to do that is to create a clear understanding of like a flow chart within the organization. And I think we're just kind of lacking that right now. And when we have a reorganization under Rosemary, I think that's the time to like just create a flow chart and just make it happen. And that way, whenever something isn't quite right, there's a clear understanding of how to change it and how to make positive change.
So there's currently a problem.
I think it's been around for a little while. I don't think it's currently. I think it's just like, it's kind of this like lingering confusion, And so
Has
it's
anybody ever said, that's not my job and I'm not gonna do it?
on more than one occasion. Yes. And so, but rather than blame the individual, we set them up to fail. Because we didn't make it clear to work together. So are they wrong or are they right? That's really falls on the select board for not having that good organization in the first place.
Well, and I think you're right about with the change of Rosemary to an appointed position. Right now, Susan works for Rosemary, right? Not for anybody else, just Rosemary.
Yeah, I mean, exactly, and it's
And
just,
with whoever Rosemary replacement is in a few years, are they gonna work for us or whoever that's?
exactly. And so, and say somebody says it's not my job, then you can go, there's a clear understanding of who to go to next and just say, hey, I really need help with this. Who should I go to? And they'll say, oh, go to them. And I'll say, oh, would you reach out for me? And then you know what? You're automatically working together on the same page. Where right now you don't really have that like, clear understanding, and that can be done A through clear job descriptions or B through a flow chart or tiered form of like leadership. But I think it's like now we're gonna have an opportunity of like putting it together that'll be really clean and efficient moving forward. And we should be thinking about that. Whether we're going to executive session tonight, I don't think the details are that important, but if we do talk details, it probably should be an executive session.
Well, we have 2 members of the board that left.
I can leave. We can stand in.
Yeah,
If you
true,
want
we could
to.
appoint.
Peter's probably going to the can, he'll be back.
No,
Yeah.
he's taking Dunkin' Donuts for sure.
Oh, is it?
No, I don't.
It's up to the board what they wanna do, I don't know if I have enough information. Maybe you could provide some more information via email or something down.
I was planning on doing it in executive session, but if I can I'll happily send the email with specifics. It's just, I don't know that that's as professional as it would be to speak freely, but.
We probably should go into executive session.
Tell us
Do
what,
we need to do it tonight?
We need to do it tonight.
No, but you need to be thinking about it, like, this is, here, let's call it out, it's not a problem.
thinking about it,
But
but
we're
we
working
don't
on fixing it.
know what we're talking about.
I
You
don't
should
know
definitely
what
have
somebody
Rosemary
can
here
do.
for this one.
So let's adjourn.
Oh, you're good.
If there's nothing else you guys wanna go over, nothing under old business,
Good night.
Yeah. Right.
if the board doesn't wanna go into executive section. There's nothing under old business, I'm gonna call the meeting adjourned, but I'm open to input.
I think that's a fine idea to adjourn.
Alright, meeting adjourned at 18.
10:18.